Hello YouTube, I have tried doing this once already and YouTube fecked up basically. So try again. And I might have to talk a bit faster. But I'm going to do an audiobook of Rivalry at Spires, Chapter 1. That's all the way back here. Sorry, Chapter 1. I love this moment of walking through to the school pool from the changing room. My whole body comes alive, even more than it does on the athletics field. Maybe it's something about the smell or the steamy atmosphere, or the beautiful pale green water that reminds me of the sea back home in Thailand. Actually, I'm just going to sit back because my back is killing me. But I'm still here, I'm still reading. Green water that reminds me of the sea back home in Thailand. Whatever it is, I love it. I always find my footsteps speeding up because I'm so desperate to get into the water and swim. But this time, Jess's hand on my arm stopped me in my tracks. Grace, look, she said in her dreamy voice. Her eyes were on the far window, which goes right from the floor to the ceiling. Look at that sun shining in. Isn't it beautiful? The water looks like liquid gold up at the deep end, doesn't it? I smiled at my best friend. I bet you'll do a painting of that later, won't you? But she didn't answer because she was lost in a little daydream. But by now, there were quite a few people in the pool. I hadn't seen anyone diving in yet though, so I decided not to do that either. It may have seemed like I was showing off, and that was the last thing I wanted anyone to think. Miss Miller, our lovely PE teacher, was hurrying people out of the changing room, while the lifeguard sat on high and watched over us all. I went down the steps and felt the cold water rising up around me, and although it made me shiver, it was a shiver I loved. It took me straight back to swimming in the sea in Thailand over the Christmas holidays. This is the beginning of the spring term at Silver Spires, which is the most perfect boarding school in the world. And here I am about to start our very first swimming lesson, because last term we didn't have any actual timetable swimming. I should be totally happy. There's just a small chunk of happiness missing, because I can't help feeling a bit homesick. My mom and dad and my big sister seem so far away when I'm in England. I know I've got my lovely group of friends, including my best friend Jess. And I also know I'll soon be back in boarding school mode. But it's only the second term of boarding for all us year sevens, so we're still getting used to it. Oh no, this is torture, came good old Georgie's voice. I glanced out to see her hunched up at the top of the steps. The quicker you get in, the quicker the torture, as you call it, will be over, said Miss Miller firmly. She clapped her hands. Chop chop everyone. 5 minutes free swimming to get used to the water, and then we'll start the lesson. She went over to help someone tighten their goggles a bit, then turned back round. Georgie Henderson, your challenge this term is to never be the last one in the pool. Georgie didn't answer. She just hunched her shoulders, even more than folded her arms, while her best friend Mia jiggled up and down in the pool in front of her. You'll get used to it really quickly, honestly, I heard her say, as I set off to the deep end, doing front crawl. I was concentrating hard on making my body as narrow and straight as possible, bringing my arms right under my head and cutting through the water with the side of my hand, while keeping my legs and feet strong. My parents wanted me to have swimming coaching during the holidays, but in the end I only had three sessions, because our lovely Christmas celebrations went on so long this year, with lots of visitors and outings. It was hard leaving those hot, sunny days of fun behind and coming back to the cold English weather. When I got to the deep end, I stopped and looked around. If I half closed my eyes, the surface of the pool looked like pale green silk with lots of brightly coloured balls floating all over it. We have to wear hats for swimming, and each boarding house here at Silver Spires has got its own colour. My 5 close friends and I are in one of the year 7 dormitories in Dean House, and we've all got purple hats. The girls from Willowhaven wear green hats. Beach House wear blue, Forest Ash is red, Elmhurst is white, and Oakley yellow. I love it that girls from all those different houses are mixed together completely randomly for things like sport and music and art. Then for maths, science and English lessons, they're in top, second and third sets. Miss Miller blew her whistle to announce that we've only got another 2 minutes of free swimming, and I suddenly realised I was starting to shiver because I'd been still for a while and I wasn't fully warmed up. I set off back to the shallow end, doing the fastest swell I could imagine, and then turned round and headed straight back to the deep end, trying to do the proper breathing on every third stroke, but not managing it very well because breathing for the fourth stroke was my biggest weakness. I'd almost completed the second length when, through the blur of the water, I noticed a blue hat coming up on my left. Someone from Beach House was swimming really fast. We judged the side at exactly the same time, and she turned to face me. I realised it was a girl called Felisa Streeter. I smiled at her, but all I got back was a cold stare, and I felt horrible shivers pushing through the lovely warmth I'd gathered during my hard swim. I didn't know what that look was about, and I don't like it when I don't understand things. Miss Miller's whistle made me jump, and I was glad that I had to concentrate on listening to instructions about lining up at the deep end, because it took my mind off Felicia's horrible look. The rest of the lesson was great fun because Mrs. Miller always makes everyone feel so confident, and we had a go at all the different strokes, even butterfly, which I'm hopeless at. I loved all the other strokes and didn't want the swimming lessons to end. That was good fun, said Jess, in the change room afterwards. Ours will push, said Georgie. So was I, added Naomi. I just didn't seem to get warmed up properly. I thought you were really good, said Katie, who's Naomi's best friend. She grinned at me as she rubbed her hair with a towel. But we knew you'd easily be the best of us lot, Grace. Jess shuffled closer to me on the bench. We're so lucky having you in our house, she said. And we've got Katie too, I quickly pointed out, because Katie's a strong swimmer. And you two joining the swimming squad, Mia asked. We weren't sure whether just anyone could join the squad, because the squad isn't a fun thing like a club. It's much more serious. So Katie went to ask Miss Miller. She came back with the answer that if you want to be in the swimming gala, you have to join the squad. But everyone's allowed to join up for it and see how they get on. But you've definitely got to join, Grace, she added. You're the best. With a bit of luck, you can enter all the races. Grace and the rest of us can just cheer you on. Then Hazeldene will be the winning house. Yay! Georgie was pulling her sweatshirt over her head, so we could only just make out what she was saying. But the others all laughed, apart from Jess. She probably guessed I'd be feeling a bit anxious about all this praise because I'd already told her I didn't feel as confident about swimming as I did about athletics. There are some really good swimmers in the other houses, I said quietly, and I couldn't help glancing around for Felisa. I spotted her in front of the mirror, scooping her hair up into a ponytail. Felisa Streeter is good, isn't she? Said Mia, who must have followed my eyes. I nodded and suddenly felt tempted to tell the others about Felicia's look, but I didn't because it would have sounded like such a silly little thing. And as soon as I'd had that thought, I realised that actually that's exactly what it was, a silly little thing. And I told myself to stop being stupid and forget about it. But just before bedtime, it popped back into my head again, and we were up to our dormitory admiring each other's pinboards. Jess was covered with photos she'd taken during the holidays, but they weren't the usual kind of photos of people or scenes. They were all different kinds of trees, like close-up of garland, old bark, or thin, bare trees silhouetted against the white sky. She got such a big imagination. Jess has, and I really love the way she looks at the world. We're so different from each other, and we both think that's the very thing that makes us best friends. Katie's pinboard was artistic too, but in a different way. Hers was covered with fashion pictures because that's what Katie's biggest passion. Naomi said photos of elephant and deer roaming across stretches of scrubland with barely anything growing. That's because she comes from Ghana, in Africa. In fact, it's easy to forget that Naomi is actually a real-life African princess. She's so modest and never boasts about it at all. Her family lives in London now, but she still thinks herself Ghanaian. And I knew she'd been back to Ghana over the holidays because she mentioned a charity that she's working for called Just Water, which helps the people of Ghana to have access to clean water. Naomi and I had also talked together about how far from home we both felt, and how cold England seemed compared to our own countries. We're not the only ones who come from far away, though. There are girls from all 5 continents in Silver Spires. Georgie was admiring the way Mia had made photos of her pets and her family into collage. When I tried to do that with my pigs, I chopped off half the heads, she said, frowning. And what's the point of having the best actors in the world right over your bed if they're headless? Do you want me to rearrange them a bit for you? Asked Mia. But Georgie was standing in front of my bed by then, hands on hips, pretending to be disapproving. Don't say we've got to look at a load of athletes again, Grace. Is that all you think about? Sport? You're only jealous like the rest of us, Georgie, said Jess. Georgie's eyes shifted from my pinboard to me. Yes, I am jealous. Why can't I look like Grace? I'd love to be slim and fit. I wish I could run like a deer and jump like a kangaroo. I laughed. I hope I don't look like a kangaroo when I'm jumping. Georgie ignored me. And I'm very jealous of your brilliant swimming too. Naomi put her arm around me. Yes, we've definitely got the best swimmer in year 7 in our house. Katie rubbed her hands and grinned like a cheeky little girl. I bet the other houses are green with envy. Don't say that, I quickly told them, feeling myself getting anxious again. And I'm not all that good at swimming, you know. There are lots in year 7 who are better than me. I'll have to train like mad. Rubbish, Katie. You're just as brilliant at swimming as you are at every other sport. All this pressure is exactly what I've been dreading. That's why I'd felt tense every time I'd thought about the swimming gala during the holidays. It was due to take place at the end of the first half of term, and with all the training I wanted to do, that didn't seem far enough away. It's a horrible pressure when people expect you to do well at something, and it's not only my friends, but my parents and the teachers here too. You see, I came to Silver Spires on a school scholarship, which means that my fees for the school have been paid because of the school things. I'm going to do really well at sport, so that when we have inter-school competitions, I'll win, and that will make other schools admire Silver Spires. I don't feel so much pressure because when it comes to athletics and netball and things, because I'm confident about them, but swimming's different. I'm not so good at swimming. I had to make the others realize. No, honestly, I'm not just saying it. At home, my sports coach says that swimming is my weakest thing, so I've made a resolution to train hard. Only, it might not make much difference, you know. You can only do your best, can't you, said Naomi. Who's the wise one of the group? And remember, you'll have swimming squad as well. I looked round hopefully. I'm not going to be the only one doing swimming squad, am I? Well, don't look at me, Naomi laughed. I'm allergic to cold water. Me too, said Mia, winking on her nose. The trouble is, it clashes with fashion club, said Katie, because it's on Wednesdays. Oh, by the way, Miss Miller said that there isn't a swimming squad session this coming Wednesday, though because she's away. Then just surprised me. I might come, she says, her eyes looking dreamy as they so often did. I quite enjoyed floating on my back and staring at the ceiling in the lesson today. It got an incredible pattern on it. You know, like an optical illusion? I had to smile. You're such an artist, Jess. Fancy noticing the swimming pool ceiling. Right, that's enough swimming talk for one day, Georgie suddenly announced. And I'm off to the computer room. Everyone decided to check their emails then, so we all trooped down 2 flights of stairs to the computer room. Good, we're the only ones here, said Katie, 1 computer each. We've only got a few minutes before we have to get ready for bed, said Mia, who gets even more anxious than me about rules and regulations. I don't know about Mia, but for me, I think it's because my parents brought me up quite strictly and always expect me to respect my elders. Yay, loads of people online, said Georgie, who's really into the Silver Spurs chat room at the moment. The rest of us were quickly checking our emails. I had a long one from my mum. And although it was lovely to hear from her, it made me feel a bit homesick too. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see that Mia had finished on her computer and was leaning on Georgie, watching her screen. I'd almost finished reading Mum's email when I suddenly heard a gasp from Mia. "What?" I heard Katie say. There was no reply, and I glanced around to see that Mia's eyes were wide and worried. "What are you looking at?" Naomi wanted to know. And a few seconds later, we were all bunched around trying to read the message on Georgie's screen. Someone with the username Torpedo Gal had written, "Shame about the big show-off who just has to be best at everything she ever does, including swimming." "That's not very nice. Who's written that?" said Mia. Georgie didn't answer at first, just started typing back, "What big show-off?" We all watched the screen as this message came back. "You should know. You'd better warn her that we don't like show-offs. It's about time she gave someone else a chance to win." "So who is Torpedo Gal?" asked Naomi. "I haven't a clue," said Georgie in a surprising quiet voice. "I've got so many people in my contact list, and I don't know who I'm talking to half the time." Her voice faltered. "But whoever it is knows who I am." A horrible, prickly feeling was creeping up my spine. "But who's she talking about?" asked Katie. There was a small silence, and then everyone must have clicked. They could only be me. Georgie turned round and gave me a kind of apologetic smile. At the same time, as Jess's arm went round my shoulder, and the prickly feeling spread right up to the backs of my eyes. Yeah, it's still recording. I'm going to check every chapter. No matter how much my friends kept telling me to forget about the stupid chat room, I simply couldn't forget it. I kept on remembering the look that Felissa had given me in the pool, and I'd got it into my head that she was the person who sent those nasty messages, and that it was obviously me she'd been talking about. I was so upset that if it hadn't been for Jess and the others persuading me, I probably would never have signed up for swimming squad, and then I wouldn't have been able to take part in the gala. To make matters worse, it turned out that swimming squad clashed with fashion and art club, so Jess couldn't be able to come with me after all. Felissa's name wasn't on the list yet, thank goodness, but there was still plenty of time. For days since my horrible shock up in the computer room, the six of us kept coming back to the same conversation about those chat room messages time and time again. Well, to tell the truth, I was usually the one who kept coming back to it. I just wish there was a way of finding out who had written the messages, and whether or not she could definitely have been talking about me. I'd been planning on doing some swimming training at the weekend, but in the end I hadn't gone to the pool at all because I couldn't bear to think that there might be someone there watching me and thinking I'm a show-off without me knowing about it. By Thursday, I'd even got myself worked up about the swimming lesson the next day, but it was Jess who brought up the subject when we were walking across to afternoon lessons. "Couldn't you just go around asking people what their usernames are, Georgie?" "But I've got such a massive contact list, like I said," Georgie answered. "Like the whole of year 7, said Mia, rolling her eyes. "Plus people change their usernames all the time," Georgie went on. "Like if the weather suddenly got cold, they might have their username, 'Isn't it cold?'" I sighed a deep sigh and spoke quietly because I didn't seem to have much energy. "I can't bear to be called a show-off." "You're totally not a show-off," said Jess, raising her voice and looking cross. "That's why I don't see how that message can have been about you. Anyway, whoever it is just jealous," said Jess firmly. Every single one of my friends had said these things lots of times already, but what Katie said next, in a low voice, hadn't actually been said by anyone, not even me. "I bet it's Felissa Streeter." "I was wondering about her too," admitted Mia, "but I didn't dare say it." I swallowed. "It's true that she hates it when you beat her in athletics," said Georgie. "At the time she pretended she sprained a muscle when you won the 200 meters. That was exactly the thought I'd been having myself, you see. I once heard Felissa boasting to her friends that she'd got a sports bursary to Silver Spires, which means that her parents pay less fees. She said that the main reason she got the bursary was because she was easily the best swimmer at her primary school, and also because she'd once swum in the under-11s team for her country. So I knew that swimming meant a lot to Felissa, so I guess she probably wanted to be the best. From what I've seen in the lesson last week, I thought she probably was the best too. Maybe she got fed up with always coming second to place in athletics and things, said Katie. Mia nodded, but I could tell she felt a bit nervous. I know she wants to be the very best at swimming because that's kind of her thing. Hang on a sec, said Naomi. We've got no proof who Tornado Gal is, or even that she's talking about Grace. And carry on as normal. Oh, I think you should just forget about it and carry on as normal. Whatever it is, they haven't been back online since, so maybe that's the last Jodie will hear from them. Yes, and whenever you want to go swimming training, you should just go right ahead, said Jess. I might not be able to join the squad, but I can always come training with you, Grace. I do a bit of floating. I felt lucky to have all my friends caring so much about me, and I knew Naomi was right. It would be stupid to let someone anonymously message worry me. Right, quick change, chop chop. No messing around, said Miss Miller, smiling round at everyone. Last week I was gentle with you. This week I want action. First one in the pool gets 3 credits. And leave your towels in the changing room, please. Then she went through to the pool herself, and the Australian gap year student, Miss Snow, stayed with us. I moved to the far end of the bench, away from the others, as we were all a bit squashed, and there was a mad scramble to get changed quickly because credits count towards the end of term house cup. Miss Miller says if anyone leaves clothes on the floor, the credits don't count. I'm afraid, girls, said Miss Snow. I got quite excited as I stuffed my clothes deep into my swimming bag because I'd always been quite quick at changing, and I guess I was in with a good chance of being first. I don't usually mind not wrapping myself in my towel to go through to the pool, but right now I was wishing it was allowed. It would be so good to hide under it. I couldn't feel on view so much. See you in the pool, I called to Naomi and Katie as I shut out of the changing room. It was weird seeing the pool completely empty, because even when I'd done free swimming there, there'd always been at least one other person there. I didn't have time to think about that now, though. All I had to do was get straight in and I'll have 3 credits, just like that. My feet hardly touched the steps at all as I slithered in. Well done, Grace, said Miss Miller, as a chilly gasp surged through my body. Then immediately afterwards I heard a splash and saw that Katie had a girl called Jamelia. I got in at exactly the same time. Bad luck, Katie and Jamelia. Grace just beat you, but I'll give you 1 credit each for being so close behind. Get yourself warmed up while the others are coming through, girls. I'd already started swimming to get warm, but I turned to give Katie a thumbs up, and that's when I saw Felissa standing on the edge, dipping her toe into the water. Wow, that's got to be a designer swimsuit she's wearing, said Katie quietly, swimming alongside me on her back. I wanted to forget about Felissa, so I just said, then turned over and did front crawl up to the other end, hearing the laughter and dramatic screeches of more and more girls getting in the pool. By the time my hand touched the far wall, I felt completely warm and realized I wasn't half so nervous anymore. There's something about being held up by water that calms my body, and for a little while as I swam up and down without looking around, I felt completely happy. I told myself to try not to look at Felissa at all, right through the lesson, and then everything would be fine. It was getting noisier and noisier, but Miss Miller didn't seem to mind. She was watching everyone carefully, though, and I knew she'd be assessing us all. Once everyone was warmed up, Miss Miller split us into 3 groups of 6 and asked the first group, which included me, but unfortunately Felissa too, to come up to the deep end. She told all the others to go with Miss Snow to the shallow end to work on the breaststroke leg kicks. All my friends were with Miss Snow. I don't usually teach techniques for races in normal swimming lessons, Miss Miller began, crouching down at the side and looking at us, but you 6 have all signed up for swimming squad, so I wanted to get started on practicing a turnaround. My spirits sank a little now. I felt that Felissa was definitely going to be in the swimming squad. Line yourself up ready to go across the width of the pool, Miss Miller said, and on my whistle, starting with Felissa, swim front course to the other side, then turn around and swim back straight back. When you've each had a go, we'll talk about the way you turned around, so watch each other carefully. Felissa set off smoothly, and then she got to the other side. She did tumble turn, which is the proper way to turn around in swimming races. Right, Grace, off you go, said Miss Miller. I'd worked hard on my tumble turns in Thailand with my coach, and he told me they were technically very good, but I was quite scared of trying it out now in front of Felissa, in case she thought I was showing off. In my heart, though, I wanted to show Miss Miller what I could do. In the end, I decided to go for it, but I was so tense that it didn't turn out very well after all. In fact, I probably just looked silly. Well done, Grace, and Miss Miller when I got back, which made me feel a bit happier. Bibi, your turn. Bibi is a real strong swimmer. I noticed that last term, when she occasionally swam at the weekend for fun. She's much bigger and taller than me and seems to cut through the water like a tornado as she swims. That word. Tornado. Made me do a little shudder with the memory of what I'd seen on Georgie's computer. I glanced at Felissa as she flicked her head round, sensing me looking. Our eyes met for a second, then we both turned away, and I concentrated on watching Bibi's turnaround. I think she was trying to do a tumble turn, but like mine, it didn't quite work out and slowed her down. Nice try, Bibi, said Miss Miller. Hannah, would you like to go next? Hannah and Bibi are really close friends. They're both from Willow Haven House, and I don't think I've ever seen them apart. Hannah is even bigger and stronger than Bibi, and she swam amazingly powerfully, which made me worry that I was too small and thin. I knew it got a lot of work to do to reach their standard. When Hannah reached the other side, she didn't attempt a tumble turn, and neither did the next girl, but the last girl in the group, Casey, who's a friend of Felissa's, did quite a good one. Right, has anyone got a comment to make about that? Miss Miller asked. I tried to do a tumble turn, but it didn't really work, so Bibi. Never mind, at least you had a shot at it. Miss Miller smiled. And tumble turns are the best way to turn around if you're doing front crawl. But for breaststroke, it's a two-handed touch, isn't it, said Felissa. That's right, said Miss Miller. We'll come to that later. For now, I'd like you all to watch Grace again. And notice how she breaks into the tumble as a continuation of her stroke. When she's about a meter away, planting both feet firmly on the wall for a vicious push-off. My heart sank. If only she'd chosen Felissa. I was sure Felissa's turn was better than mine. I didn't dare look to see how she was reacting, but just set off nervously. Surprisingly, my tumble turn worked a bit better the second time, though. And afterwards, everyone had a go. I was relieved when Felissa managed to do a perfect one straight away, and I decided impulsively to try and be friendly. That was really good, Felissa, much better than mine. The moment I spoke, I regretted it, because she didn't seem bothered to reply, let alone smile. It must have sounded as though I thought I was something special, and I hoped I hadn't made matters even worse. But then I remembered that Naomi had said that the message could have been from anyone, and might not have been aimed at me at all. And I gave myself a sharp telling off for thinking about it so often instead of concentrating on swimming. After all the 4 groups had a go at the deep end with Miss Mara, we were allowed to do free swimming. And I noticed Hannah and Bibi plunging up and down, doing length after length, not seeming to get at all tired. I knew it would take an awful lot of work for me to be as good as them. Melissa stayed at the shallow end and showed her best friend Stella how to do a tumble turn. I didn't think Stella was all that interested because she never tried one out herself. But Felissa just kept doing more and more, and I realized she was actually brilliant at them. My legs were a bit shaky as I walked back through to the changing room with Jess and the others. Still, I survived the lesson, and even though I'd been dreading it, I now was filled with determination to come back on both the weekend days and train like mad. When I got inside the changing room, though, it was more than just my legs that started to feel shaky. Miss Miller was picking up my bag from the floor, with my school skirt poking out of it. She pushed her lips and said, "Whose is this?" "Remember mine?" But I'm certain I left it on the bench. A look of puzzlement crept over Mrs. Miller's face. "Oh dear, Grace," she paused. I knew she was thinking that she had to take the credits away from me, and maybe she was wondering whether that would be too harsh. My heart beat fast as I waited. "I did warn them all," said Mrs. Miller quietly, meeting Mrs. Miller's eyes. It was a horrible moment because the changing room was completely silent, and I could feel lots of pairs of eyes on me. You obviously left your bag too near the edge of the bench, Grace, said Miss Miller. She looked a bit sad as she carried on, and I wondered whether she really believed what she just said. I'm afraid I'll have to take 2 of the credits away. I think that's the fairest thing. So you and Amelia and Katie get 1 credit each. I nodded and tried not to go red as I took the bag from her and took my towel out to dry myself. I was thinking back to what had happened before I'd rushed through to the swimming pool, and I knew I'd been careful to put the bag right up to the back of the bench. I was quite sure I'd pushed my skirt in properly. I could feel myself getting upset, so I got dressed. Then told myself firmly to forget it. I still got 1 credit, after all, and I hadn't been expecting any before swimming started. My friends didn't say anything about it at first because they probably didn't want me to feel embarrassed. But when we were back at Hazeldene, Jess suddenly came out with it. I don't get it, Grace. You're always so organized and tidy. The others nodded. So it was obvious they knew what Jess was talking about. And Georgie then said exactly what I'd been wondering. Do you reckon someone deliberately knocked it off the bench? She nodded her eyes, like Melissa. I don't know, but it doesn't matter, I quickly said. I felt 5 pairs of eyes on me and realized I'd spoken quite snappily. I couldn't help it. I knew this conversation was about to lead back to that chat message, and I was still trying to do my best to forget about it. Maybe someone did it by accident, said Mia, and didn't realize. Miss Miller looked kind of puzzled, though. Grace didn't do it, didn't she? Kitty said. Lovely Jess must have seen the tense look on my face. Let's finish this conversation, she said. How did the Tumbletons go? We all saw you all practicing them. Fine, I said, keeping my sigh inside, because this wasn't a big enough change of conversation for me to forget about Felissa. Jess knows me so well that she must have realized I was still anxious. Oh, yes, she said brightly. I forgot to tell you. I had a plan about half term. I thought I'd ask Mum if you can come to our house instead of staying with your guardians. My big brother's staying with one of his friends, and Mum and Dad'll both be out at work, so we'll have the house to ourselves. Jess's green eyes, which are normally very dreamy, were really sparkling, and she looked so pretty with her curly, purpley hair. That'll be brilliant. I'll just have to check with Mum. I was going to go home to Thailand for all the long holidays at Christmas, but it's an 11-hour journey each way on the plane. So for the short half-term holidays, I stay with my guardians in England. They're called Jan and Pete, and I've known them for ages because they made friends with our family when they came on holiday to Thailand years ago. And we've met up with them lots of times since. They're both really nice, and I knew they were planning a trip to Thorpe Park over half-term, but I still prefer the thought of being with Jess. After prep that evening, I made my way to the computer room at Hazeldene. I had to get used to calling it prep instead of homework, but I don't mind the way we do it at Silver Spires, sitting silently in a room with one of the house staff supervising. Jess had already texted her mum to ask about me staying for half-term, but she hadn't heard back from her, which Jess said wasn't surprising because her mum's an accountant and often gets home late from work. I thought it was a bit of an important thing to ask my own mum in a text, so I decided to email her and make it a nice, newsy one. Georgie was the only other person in the room, and I couldn't help feeling a bit nervous when I realized she was chatting online. Don't look so worried, Grace, she says. It's been a whole week since that last message. Her eyes went straight back to the screen. I don't know who on earth this is online at the moment, but she certainly knows some good jokes. I sat down at the next door computer and looked at my watch. It would be 2:30 in the morning in Thailand, so my parents would be fast asleep in bed and wouldn't get my email till the next day. That didn't matter though. I typed away, telling them all about today's swimming lesson, concentrating on how much my Christmas holiday training sessions had definitely paid off, because I knew that would please Mum and Dad. Then I told them about the history lesson when Mr. Wilson had praised the essay I'd done for prep. I left it till the very end to ask about staying with Jess for half-term, and only after I pressed send did I look at Georgie and see that she was staring at her screen with a look of major concentration on her face. My heart beat a little bit faster. What's up, Georgie? She didn't speak, so I got up and read what was written on her screen. over her shoulder, but it didn't make sense because it just said, "Don't you think?" "What's that mean?" I asked her. Her voice sounded suddenly weak. "Have you seen who's written it?" I read the username that she pointed to. One credit too many. And suddenly tightened in my stomach. We're getting to the bit where the YouTube cut me off. Chapter 3. "Text from Mum," said Jess. And we all meet up in the courtyard that morning and break the next day. That's what she says. There had been such a disappointment the previous evening, and Jess's mum had phoned her just before bedtime to say she was sorry but she had to work all through the half-term week, with only one day off in the middle. So Jess was going to be spending the daytimes with her twin cousins, who still went to primary, and her mum, Jess's Aunt Lynn. "Daisy and Emma are perfectly nice," Jess had said with a sigh, "but they don't like doing the same things as me. They're into magazines and horoscopes, and they're quite happy to just sit in their bedrooms with the TV on. But I prefer, exploring with my camera." But then today, at breakfast, she suddenly come up with a solution. "I could ask Mum if you can come to my Aunt Lynn's too. I'm sure she wouldn't mind," she giggled. "We could escape the twins and go off for walks together." So we were both desperate to see what Jess's mum thought about that idea. I knew it wasn't going to be good news from the face Jess was pulling as she read the text. "Oh no, Mum says she doesn't like to ask Aunt Lynn to be responsible for an extra person, and that she'll prefer to be around herself when you come to stay anyway. She's going on about the Easter holidays, but you'll be going home then, won't you?" "Well, you might be able to stay with me in Thailand over Easter," I said, feeling excited again. "Never mind Easter," said Georgie. "What about this afternoon? Who's coming on the shopping trip?" "I've got to buy presents for the Chinese New Year weekend. Every term there's an international evening or weekend when some or all of the 6 houses get together and put on games and activities, as well as a special dinner. In the spring term it's always a Chinese evening to celebrate the Chinese New Year. That falls sometime in January or February. This year it was February. It was very exciting building up to it, because traditionally everyone buys their friends little gifts, and the year 8s told us that the house staff also buys something small for every single girl in the house. I've already bought my gifts over the holidays, and I had them stashed away at the back of my drawer in my box of precious things. It turned out that everyone wanted to go shopping except me and Jess, who was planning on spending the afternoon with her camera. Personally, I've been hoping to go to the pool to practice my breathing for my phone call, but an anxious feeling had started to well up inside me about going on my own in case Felissa was there. Jess must have read my mind. Actually, I quite fancy going to the pool. It might be the one and only time I get to do my floating. "No, don't worry," I quickly said. "I'll be all right." And I found myself blurting out my fears. I just wish I'd never seen those messages. It's awful knowing someone doesn't like me, but not knowing who. "You mustn't let that get to you," said Naomi, "because that's exactly what this horrible person wants. Remember, you've got to act normally, as though nothing's bothering you, and there's still a chance that the messages are nothing to do with you. Anyway, after all, Georgie's got about 70 year 7s on his contact list, and there were only 18 of us in the swimming pool lesson yesterday." The others nodded their heads in agreement, but obviously they weren't only trying to cheer me up, because how could one credit too many be aimed at anyone else but me? "You didn't reply, did you, Georgie?" asked Nia suddenly. Georgie shook her head. "No, but maybe next time they're online I ought to tell them that Grace thinks they're pathetic and so do I. Then perhaps they won't bother us any more." "No, don't," I quickly said. "They might make them do something worse. I'd rather just try and ignore it." Jess looked thoughtful. "Perhaps if it happens again, Georgie, you ought to text something like, 'You're wasting your time writing stuff about Grace because I'm purposely not telling her any of it.'" "No," I protested again, "because they'll find other ways of getting to me." "It's actually bullying," said Jess. "I think you should report it, Grace." But what would I say? I don't know who it is, and it doesn't sound all that terrible calling yourself one credit too many and saying, "Don't you think?" And even if a teacher found out who said it, which is impossible, that person could pretend they were talking about something else entirely. Mia seemed to agree with Jess. What about that first message, though? That was horrible. I was feeling more and more uncomfortable because it was too hard to explain why I didn't want any teachers involved, because I was scared that whoever had it in for me would be angry if she found out I had told a teacher. But there was another reason. The term before, my really precious stopwatch had been stolen, and Mrs. Carmichael, her mistress, had to make an announcement about it in the assembly, and eventually I'd put it back. But I don't want the teachers to think I'm always in the middle of a drama. They might get fed up with me. Look, I'm fine, honestly, I said, smiling brightly, even though it was the last thing I felt like doing. Naomi's right, I just got to act like nothing's bothering me. Then they'll leave me alone. All the same, I'm coming swimming with you, said Jess. There's lots of time for me to take a few pictures as well afterwards. I was determined to stand on my own 2 feet, though, and I couldn't let poor Jess spend her Saturday afternoon swimming when she'd so much rather be out with her beloved camera. Jess, I'll be fine, I promise. There was no one in the changing room, but there were loads of bags and clothes and shoes lying around the place, which meant that the pool was going to be pretty crowded. I didn't recognize any of the shoes. Some were boots, but most were trainers, all of different colours. What did Felissa wear on her feet? I had no idea. Stop thinking about it, Grace, I told myself sharply. Anyway, there was always at least one lifeguard at the pool, so who could hurt me? Hurt me! I really had to get rid of these ridiculous ideas. All that had happened was a few nasty words written on a computer. No one wanted to hurt me. They didn't even dare reveal who they were. They were hiding behind the computer screen. Why should I worry about such weak people? Instead of wrapping the towel around my shoulders, I hung it around my neck, so I wouldn't be as tempted to hook it to me like a kind of security blanket. Then I made myself go through to the pool. The warm air met me, which felt comforting, and I was glad to hear so much noise too. That meant everyone was having fun and no one would pay any attention to me. I put the towel on one of the rails at the side, being a bit lost without it, and ran my eyes as casually as I could over the pool. The only person I could really make out was Hannah. She was doing front crawl, cutting through the water with her head down, and only breathing on every third stroke. I so hoped Miss Miller would teach us the proper front crawl technique in swimming squad. I didn't like standing on the edge. It made me feel real conspicuous. But I barely wanted to know if Felissa was in the pool before I got in. I just feel a bit more secure if I knew that. So I pretended to be adjusting my goggles and then tucking bits of stray hair into my swimming cap, which gave me a chance to take a better look. The only other person I instantly recognized was Bibi, at the deep end with her back to the wall. Her arms stretched out along the rail, her eyes on me. I quickly looked away, then sat down on the edge and twisted my body round as I slid in, so no one could see me wince at the chill of the water. I really wanted to swim hard up and down the pool, trying to get faster at front crawl and concentrate on the breathing, but I couldn't be sure that no one was watching me, and I didn't want to look too keen. What I really mean is I couldn't be sure that Felissa wasn't watching me. It annoyed me that I even cared whether she was watching or not, but I knew I wouldn't be able to relax until I found out if she was actually in the pool. To give myself a bit more time, I pretended to be warming up, rolling my shoulders and drawing my knees up to my chest, one at a time. Then I stopped abruptly at the sound of a snigger. I couldn't tell who it was, but it made me spring into action and start swimming. At least with breaststroke, unless you're doing it with the proper technique and dipping your face in and out on every stroke, you can look around a bit. So that's what I did, and it didn't take any time at all for me to spot Felissa, Stella, and Casey doing handstands near the shallow end. My stomach knotted immediately. Bibi and Hannah were practicing tumble turns a bit further up, and a group of Year 8s were plunging up and down the pool in pairs. Those of Year 7s were having a hold your breath underwater competition. I must have been the only person on my own. Maybe I should have said yes please when Jess offered to come, but no one seemed to be looking at me except the lifeguard, and she was only looking because that was her job. After 4 lengths of nice, comfortable breaststroke, I gave myself a firm telling on. Right, Grace, stop being silly and get on with what you came to do. So I changed to front crawl and really tried to push myself to go as fast as I could. I made it up a rule that I wasn't allowed to stop until I'd done 8 lengths. But by the time I'd done 4, I was wishing I'd made it 6 because my muscles were tightened. It already slowed down a lot. It was also more difficult because the pool was so crowded. So I made a resolution to turn it up before breakfast the next day. Then with a better luck, I'd get the pool all to myself. I don't mind the thought of being on my own. In fact, I prefer it because I can concentrate on my training without worrying about anyone watching apart from the lifeguard. At the end of the 8th length, I felt exhausted. I wish I'd set myself the task of doing an odd number, as then I could have finished at the deep end, where the water would go right up to my neck. I felt stupid in the shallow end because I had to bend my legs until I was nearly kneeling to make sure my top half wasn't sticking up out the water. When I wasn't out of breath anymore, I went right under and veered round through my goggles. Everything sounded muffled and real, and it was weird to see pale legs kicking and flapping in slow motion. In a funny way, it made me feel calm and safe. But after a while, I ran out of breath. And I had to come up again, where the shrill, echoey sounds of chatter and laughter hit me like an alarm clock going off. This time I took a proper look around and was surprised to see no sign of Felissa and her friends, Phoebe and Hannah, were still practicing tumble turns near the deep end. I decided to try one myself, so I swam to the side about halfway up the pool and pushed hard down into the somersault. It worked really well, and I managed to keep swimming underwater right up to the other side of the pool. I came up gasping and happy, then turned to see both Phoebe and Hannah staring at me, so I quickly looked away. A moment later they got out too, and after a while there was only me and a few year 8s left. I felt much more comfortable about anyone from my year in the pool, and even better when I saw through the massive window behind the lifeguard's tall chair that Felissa and her friends were rushing off somewhere, sat, swinging their bags and laughing. It's funny how easy you can see out from the inside. If the sun's shining and you're looking in from outside, you can't see anything except reflections. I enjoyed myself for the next 20 minutes, swimming up and down and timing myself by the giant clock on the wall. And by the time I got out of the pool, I had that lovely satisfied feeling I'd always get after training. I couldn't say I was looking forward to swimming squad, but at least I wasn't worried anymore, because Felissa hadn't done anything horrible to me in the pool. Okay, she hadn't exactly been friendly, but then we didn't know each other particularly well, and anyway, she'd just been messing about with her friends, and there was nothing wrong with that. When I got up to the dorm, it was a lovely surprise to find Jess there, looking at photos on her digital camera. I've taken some really good ones, she said, in what I call her fairway voice. I'm going to edit them on the computer later. Then she looked at me, probably and saw my wet hair. Oh, sorry, how was swimming? Was Felissa there? Yes, but she was fine. She didn't say anything or give me any funny looks or spoil my training at all. So I'm not worried anymore. I think I've got a bit faster at front crawl too, but I want to get much faster by the time it's the gala. Hannah's brilliant at it too. Jess's dreamy look changed to a sparkly one, and I could tell she was relieved that nothing awful had happened to me. When the others got back from shopping, we all went to make hot chocolate in the kitchen, then took it up to the dorm and played 20 questions sitting on the round rug. It was pouring down outside, which always gives me a lovely cozy feeling. Katie had bought a big red shift dress in a charity shop, but she was being rather secretive about it. I don't get what you want it for, said Georgie, wrinkling her nose. It's 10 times too big for you. Katie smiled. Haha, you shall see. Everyone seemed pleased to hear that my swimming training had been fine, and after we'd watched a bit of TV and had supper, Jess and I went to look at her photos on one of the computers. The first one was a sash window that was just a bit open, and showed the bottom of her net curtain that had blown underneath the window and got dirty, the rain and the dust from the window. Then as she showed me the rest, I realized they were all of windows, but every one was completely different. some looking out and some looking in. I like thinking about this, she told me, with a distant look in her eyes. We are the outsiders looking in. Are all the outsiders the ones inside looking out like prisoners? It's great talking with Jess about things like that, and I asked if she'd ever thought of photographing the swimming pool window. That's a good idea, she said thoughtfully. I'd probably get some interesting reflections, but then I might not get anything else except reflections, unless the sun isn't shining. Only then there wouldn't be enough light. What about if you did it from inside? Then I think I'd get detention, she laughed. I'm not sure that cameras are allowed at the poolside. Miss Mello would think I'm mad. What's so funny? Asked Georgie, coming in at the moment and going straight online. When we told her, she laughed too, and then the laughter died away and I instantly knew why. It's another message, isn't it? I said heavily. Let me see. This time when I read the words, I felt like bursting into tears. Don't choo-choo, skinny gal, 'cause skinny equals useless equals loser. It's from Torpedo Gal, said Jess sadly. She turned away. What's choo-choo? I asked shakily. Train, said Georgie quietly. She's telling you not to train. I could feel myself going all crumbly inside, but I wanted to stay strong because the moment I showed fear, one of my friends would be sure to go to a teacher. How do you know she means me? I'm not the only skinny one. But even as I was saying it, I was wondering how I stood on the side of sat on the side for a while, fiddling with my goggles and swimming hat, so I could try and see if Felissa was in the pool. Perhaps it had looked like I was showing off. I flopped down into the seat beside Jess, as a horrible thought suddenly occurred to me. I blurted it out because it felt too shocking to keep inside. I don't think it is Felicia, you know. What? Said Georgie, swinging her head around. My mind was zooming back over the whole swimming session, taking snapshots along the way. Phoebe staring at me with her arms stretched out along the rail. Hannah and Bibi practicing tumble turns, me doing a perfect one. The only way they looked at me, then got out almost immediately after. Think about it, I said dully. Felissa's not much different in height and shape than me, but Bibi and Hannah are miles bigger. Why should Felissa say anything about me being skinny? I hung my head. Then they were practicing tumble turns, and I just stupidly went and did a perfect one. They must have thought I was a total show-off. I wish I had done it. It's my own fault. Jess's eyes were wide with shock. You can't blame yourself, Grace. They're the evil ones, and they're frightening you. She bit her lip. I mean, whoever it is. Yes, said Georgie, looking just as put out as Jess. Whoever it is, they've got to check to tell you not to train, huh? The door opened and we all jumped for no reason except that the message had made us tense. It's only me, not a ghost, said Mia, trying to make us smile. But a second later she realised we were deadly serious. What's happened? Tell you in the dorm, said Jess flatly. So a few minutes later we were all getting ready for bed. Explained about the message to Mia, Naomi and Katie. Whoever it is, it's definitely their problem, not yours, said Naomi, looking cross. Don't you think Grace ought to report it? Asked Georgie, eyes flashing. The teachers would be furious if they knew that people were using the chat room for this kind of thing, Kitty asked. Exactly, and they'd probably ban it, I pointed out. Then if people found out it was thanks to me, they'd hate me, I shivered without meaning to. I really don't want to report it, I said, turning to Naomi and talking to her in a panicky gable like she was my mum. Remember you said I mustn't let it bother me, Naomi. She nodded slowly, her big eyes staring into the distance, as though she could remember saying it, but wasn't quite so convinced about it anymore. Jess put her arm around me, and I took a deep breath. I was trying to be so brave and strong, but inside I was turning to jelly. After each chapter, I'm taking a drink. Chapter 4. It wasn't easy keeping my nerve till swimming squad on Wednesday. Whenever I was anywhere near the main building, it was tempting to rush in and scrub my face off the list. But I knew that if I did that, one of my friends would try and explain everything to Miss Cowell or Miss Miller. Each time Georgie went on the computer, I felt myself tensing right up. because I was sure it would only take one more horrible message aimed at me before one of them went right ahead and reported it. And there was another reason why I didn't want to show how worried I really felt too, because if I lost my nerve, I might never get it back, and then I'll be so disappointed in myself. My parents had brought me up to face up to things and always to try my best and never give in. And that's what I was doing right now, even though it felt like the hardest test I've ever had in my life. Remember, said Jess, catching my tense look as I was about to set off to the pool. Mrs. Miller will be there, and Mrs. Snow and the lifeguard. Her eyes flashed. So if Phoebe or Hannah say anything nasty or threatening to you, you just tell someone straight away, alright? Now I felt as though Jess was my mum. I tried to make my voice as light as possible. I'll be fine, I'm sure. There are 20 of us in the swimming squad, and I've got changed on my own while Mrs. Miller sorted things out in the pool area. I was chatting to a girl called Evie from Oakley House, who's really bubbly and reminds me of a bit of Great Georgie. I made doubtedly sure I pushed my clothes deep into my bag this time and left the bag right at the very back of the bench. Then I wrapped myself in my towel and sat on the bench waiting for Evie, feeling strange and isolated even with all the chatter going on around me. Grace, you ready? Said Miss Mallard, appearing suddenly and bringing me out of my daydream. Off you go. As soon as I got to the pool area, I went straight down the steps, not even noticing whether the water was cold or not. I did backstroke to the other end, taking care to keep looking over my shoulder to check I wasn't about to bash into anyone. Then I did breaststroke back to the shallow end because by then Phoebe and Hannah were in the pool, swimming back and forth across the deep end. Felicia was lying on her back right in the middle of her eyes closed, getting her friend to pull her around. Casey was laughing away. After a few minutes of warm-up, Miss Mallard jumbled up all the different houses into 5 teams for a medley relay, and told us which lane to line up at the deep end. I wasn't put with Phoebe or Hannah, or Felissa, thank goodness, but I did have Evie in my team, so that felt like a good omen. Grace ought to go last if it's a relay, Evie said. You're always supposed to put your fastest swimmer last. Well, I'm not all that fast, actually, I quickly said. But no one seemed to be listening because the other 3 had already arranged themselves in front of me. So it went Nicole, Evie, Holly, me. Looking at the team in the next line, I noticed Felissa was also at the back, standing level with me, which meant that she and I would be competing against each other. But I didn't mind that at all. Now, I was pretty sure she wasn't the one sending the messages. Phoebe and Hannah were in lane 1, which was the furthest away from the team, thank goodness. But my heart jittered when I saw that Hannah was also swimming last for her team. Everyone should swim 2 lengths. Those swimming first, you must do breaststroke. The girls in second place swim backstroke. Those in third, freestyle. And the girls swimming last, front crawl. Got it? Said Miss Mallard. Today you can choose whether you want to start in the water or dive in from the block or just from the side. Next week we'll do proper diving technique using the blocks in preparation for the gala. But for now, whether or not you decide to dive in, you must make sure that the person before you in your team touches the rail before you set off. And if they're doing breaststroke, they must touch with both hands. Those of you in first position in your team, you want to dive in, take care not to dive before you might whistle, or it's a full stop. If I see anyone do a full stop, I'll blow the whistle repeatedly straight afterwards to tell you to start again. Right, everyone, ready? Miss Miller waited for silence, then said, on your marks, and blew her whistle. I was glad I wasn't going first because I would have been so worried about doing a full stop that I'd probably dived in late, which would have put the team behind straight away. But the first 4 girls all dived in or set off from the side perfectly on the whistle. And straight away everyone started calling out, come on, to the team members, and the pool area was full of shrill noises and echoes. All 4 teams stayed more or less level until the second people set off. Evie was doing backstroke but kept going off course and having to wiggle her way back into the middle of the lane. So by the time it was Holly's turn, we were coming level last with Hannah's team. Holly managed to get the tiniest bit ahead of the third girl on Hannah's team, so I dived in just before Hannah. But in no time at all, she was ahead of me, beating her arms against the water and diving fast forwards. Half of me wanted to use every single atom of energy I possessed to try and catch up with her, but the other half of me was holding back, scared of what I might see on the computer later. Hannah touched the side of the deep end before I went into my tumble turn, but I kicked hard off the wall, and when I came up I found I'd managed to draw level with her, and that was when my competitive spirit suddenly flooded in and made me determined to beat her. Melissa had already finished, so her team had won, and I knew from Miss Mellor's whistles that the other team had finished too, which just left my team and Hannah's. I flung my arms out as hard as I could with every stroke and tried to get the breathing right, even though it didn't really work. Everyone was yelling out to us excitedly at the tops of their voices, and even though it sounded strange and muffled with my head down, it made me try even harder. 2 more strokes to go, then 1. The fingers touched the side and a single whistle sounded. "Dead heat," cried Mrs. Mellor. Her face was all shiny and smiley. "Well done, both of you." I looked across at Hannah, and our eyes met. I could have definitely managed to smile if she'd given me one. But she instantly looked away, and I felt the energy leaving my body. I tried to get out of the pool, but it was a struggle, because my arms seemed to have totally lost their strength. Evie and the others laughed as they hauled me out, congratulating me at the same time, which made me feel better. "Well done, Grace, you were great." "Like a torpedo," said Evie, her voice raised in a high-pitched squeal. Why did that word keep popping up? Immediately, one of my high spirits fizzed away. Miss Nella snapped everyone back to attention with a shrill blast on her whistle, then made a few comments about how we'd got on. "It's not long till the gala now, girls, so we need to spend more time working on weak areas. I'll be coming round to give individual help, because every one of you here today will be swimming in the gala. Some more than others. I haven't decided yet exactly which races you'll all be competing in, but I'll let you know in due course." That was just what I needed to pull myself out of my depression, because it was exciting to imagine which races I might be entered in, and I wanted to sort out my breathing for fun crawl. But thinking about the gala also filled me with butterflies, and I had to work hard on my breathing technique for the rest of the session to make my nervousness go away. Later, I told the others that swimming squad had been fine, and I'd even managed to keep up with Hannah in a race over 2 lamps. I didn't mention the look that she and I had exchanged at the end, which should have been a smile, but actually no more than the briefest, emptiest stare. Just must have felt my unease. Oh, by the way, I had the most obvious idea in the world during art club. If Georgie stops going online, then whoever it is won't bother sending any messages. Simple. She turned her palms up and smiled around at us all. "I don't know why we didn't think of that before," said Naomi, grinning back at Jess. "It's true that Georgie's only got to keep out of the chat room till after the swimming gala, and everything will be fine." I knew I should have been happier with this idea, but it was just making me worry all the more. Seeing those horrible messages had been really upsetting, but the thought of not seeing them and worrying whether or not I was being talked about seemed 10 times worse. And the worst thing of all, what if the chat room messages turned into real-life bullying? "Just one small thing, guys," said Georgie. "I have to point it out to you all, but I'm going to be banned from using the chat room. And as I don't have 1,000,001 things to do, like you lot, aren't I going to get a teensy bit bored?" "It's true, it's not fair on poor old Georgie," I said quickly. "I've got an idea," said Katie in an excited babble. "Why don't you change your username, Georgie? Then no one will know whether you're online or not." "Brilliant," said Jess. "Let's help Georgie invent a new username. What's the old one?" "Castles in the Sky." Georgie answered promptly with a proud look on her face. I couldn't resist having the name of last term's play. And get this, my clever username also helps me to remember my password, which is Bouncy Castle. How cool is that? She suddenly looked a bit alarmed. "If I've got to change it, I really want something to do with drama, you know." "Don't worry, we'll think of something just as good," said Katie encouragingly. So the decision was made for us all to think of ideas till after prep had finished, then get together and see what we've come up with. Our 5 friends spent most of their supper staring at the space with frowns on their faces, and I knew they were concentrating on coming up with a great new username and password for Georgie. Personally, I was in a state because Hannah and Bibi were at the next table and I could just feel their eyes on me, which made me shiver inside. Walking over to Hansel after supper, I suddenly heard a brainwave out of the blue, and I didn't know why I hadn't thought of it before. It was lovely to be thinking of something that had nothing to do with messages or swimming or for a change. Why don't I ask Jan if it's okay for you to spend the half-term week with me, Jess? I'm sure she wouldn't mind. Then you get to come to Thorpe Park and everything. Wow, that would be brilliant, said Jess. So I rushed off to email Jan straight away before prep. I usually quite enjoy prep because it gives me a lovely, calm feeling, being with all my friends silently working away. It was maths this evening, which is one of my favourite subjects. Jess needed a bit of help, so I did her first couple of questions for her, but then she got the hang of it and managed the rest on her own. If I had been Mrs. Forsbrook on duty, she wouldn't have minded my helping Jess so much. But Mrs. Carroll is much stricter and makes us work completely on our own for the whole hour. So I have to take care not to let her notice that what I was doing. Usually I don't like breaking rules like that, but some things are more important than rules, like friendship. As we were finishing the prep, Katie slid a piece of paper across the table to me with the words William Shakespeare on it. She raised her eyebrows as if to ask me what I thought of it, and I gave her a thumbs up, then went back to checking my maths. I couldn't concentrate though. Those 2 little words had jolted me right back to that chat room world. The world of my fears. Afterwards, on the way up to the dorm, Georgie wrinkled her nose. William Shakespeare? It's not very original, is it? Anyway, what would my password be? Shake it, said Katie. Brilliant, Katie, said Naomi. What's wrong with that, Georgie? Georgie sighed a massive sigh. I just really like my old username. Look, let's go back to plan A. I'll give up messaging for a while, okay? She broke into a grin. Now for important things. Who's coming to flop into a nice soft beanbag and watch TV with me? We were all laughing as we set off along to the common room. But once we were there and had sunk into the sofas and beanbags, everyone fell quiet. I tried to concentrate on the program, but my mind kept wandering because something was niggling away at me. What if Hannah and Bibi were busy typing horrible things about me right now? They probably weren't, as Georgie wasn't online. But what if they were? What if they were other people joining in their conversation, all dissing me as I lay here on this beanbag? Suddenly I had to know, and I realised I could easily find out. After all, I knew Georgie's password now, Bouncy Castle, and I already knew her email address because we all emailed each other over Christmas, and I could go online and pretend to be her. I didn't have to make it into a big deal and tell my friends. Once the idea had taken root in my mind, I couldn't let it go. Back in a minute, I whispered to Jess. She nodded without taking her eyes off the screen, and I didn't think the others had noticed that I was leaving the room. They were so into the program. All this time I knew I had to be quick in case one of them decided to come along to the computer room and email their parents. We often email at this time of evening leading up to bedtime. My hands were shaking as I typed in Georgie's password and saw the list of people who were online. There were 5 of them, and I only recognised one of their usernames, someone called XM's X. It was probably Emma Horn from Forest Ash, because she's very small. A moment after I signed in, there came a message from Helen of Troy, who might have been Helen Bannister from Willowhaven, or Helen Starkwell from Elmhurst, or another Helen, who wrote, anyone got any nail v remove. Someone called Dreads wrote, sauce babes, and someone else wrote, yo, give it ya to Moz. The conversation went on to different nail varnish colours and shades, and I noticed that after that quite a few usernames seemed to have colours in them, like Scarlet from Penel and Bluebell Woods, which made me realise how people sometimes change their usernames according to the conversation they were having. I kept on thinking I ought to be writing something myself, otherwise the other people who were online might think it a bit odd, but I couldn't work out what Georgie would write. Instead I clicked on away. So then people would think I had to go away from the computer for a while. After that the conversation changed to swimming, and I held my breath waiting for a nasty comment. Torpedo Gal wasn't online, but of course Hannah or BB might have changed their usernames. It was good at Swimming Squad, someone called Evita wrote, and I suddenly wondered whether it was Evie. I couldn't understand why people liked messaging so much when half the time they didn't even know who they were talking to. The next message to come up was from Razzle Tazzle. She wrote, "Didn't you have nothing to torture last Friday? Why turn up for more?" Evita replied, "Love, yeah, but you're a wimp. I was rubbish. My team came level last, but I still love you." Now my heart was racing furiously because I was sure that any minute I'd see a message about the show-off who did the tumble turn or the girl who couldn't get out of the pool on her own or something like that. But nothing came, and the subject changed to a discussion about TV programs. Then everyone started saying bye and night to each other, and watch the bugs don't bite and quick matron alert, which made me realize I had to sign out and get up to the dorm before someone found me. I've been lucky to have the whole computer room to myself for so long, but it's true that on Wednesday evenings there were good TV programs on, so most people go to the common room after prep. "Where did you get to?" asked Jess, looking confused as soon as I went to the dorm. I had my reply ready, although I didn't like lying to Jess, even if it was only a small one. I wanted to see if Jan had replied to my email, but she hadn't, so then I emailed my sister. Thinking about my sister sent a pang of homesickness whizzing around my body, but only for a second, because I was so relieved that there hadn't been any nasty messages and I could actually relax. We have to hand in our phones every night to matron's office, and we all picked a day off the week to be phone monitor, but on Sundays it was a free-for-all. Tonight was Mia's turn, and I was just about to switch mine off and hand it over when it rang. "Oh, hi, Jan," I said, which made Jess shush everyone so she could listen. It was lovely to hear Jan's voice. She always sounds so bright and bubbly, and it was even lovelier to hear what she was saying. "Of course I'd love to have your friend for the week. Grace, I just need to be sure that it's all right with your parents." I didn't think there'd be a problem with Jess's parents, but I wanted to give Jess a lovely surprise at the end of the call. So I kept my voice level and says, "I'm not sure. We were just asking you first." Jess opened her eyes wide and raised her open palms as if to say, "What's happening?" But I turned my back and carried on talking with Jan for another minute, being careful not to give anything away. After I said goodbye, I turned around slowly to see her, Jess bursting with curiosity. Then I smiled and spoke quietly. "Yes, you can come." "Yay," said Jess, giving me a hug. "Just my mum to ask, then we'll all be sorted." I thought about that as I went off to the bathroom. Jess was right. Things had gradually seemed to be sorting themselves out. The messages seemed to have stopped, and I got the support of my lovely friends. Not everyone thought I was a show-off. I was cross with myself for having upset. I've been using George's password like that without asking. Though all I'd done was make myself feel nervous at first and guilty afterwards. I wouldn't do it again. Good decision, and now I've got a lovely Chinese weekend to look forward to, and then half-term with Jess. Yes! Chapter 5. The build-up to the Chinese New Year weekend was nearly as good as the weekend itself. We all had to be responsible for tidying and cleaning our own dorms and one other area of the boarding house, because apparently in China there's a huge clean-up in the days before the New Year to sweep away bad luck. I liked the idea and really threw myself into my main job, which was polishing a wooden floor in the dorm. I wanted to make myself sure there wasn't a single trace of bad luck hanging around anywhere. Maybe I didn't do it thoroughly enough, or maybe Jess didn't wipe the window sills very well, because we did get one piece of bad luck. Jess's mum had said she wasn't sure about Jess being away from the whole of half term, but Jess had confidently told me that she could easily get her mum to change her mind. What actually happened, though, was that her mum phoned to explain that she was sorry, but she thought about it and she was afraid she'd miss Jess too much, and she'd only get to see her during the main holidays then, because of having to work during the week. She'd have to have Jess at home for both the weekends, and it seemed from the map that Jan and Pete lived too far away for Jess to travel back and forth. Jess and I were both really disappointed, but Jess did admit that she missed her mum and dad too if she didn't get to see them for the Easter holidays. So in the end, we had to forget about plans for the half term. It was a good job we'd got Chinese New Year to keep us cheerful. Another tradition in China is decorating your windows and doors with little verses about things like happiness, riches, and long life. So we did the same at silver spires, decorating our boarding houses with rhyming couplets. We'd had to make up for one of our English preps. We had been told by Miss Kell to dress in as much red as possible on the Saturday evening, and definitely no black, as it's bad luck, or white, because the Chinese associate it with mourning. And when it came to Saturday afternoon, Katie gave us all a lovely surprise by handing each of us a very broad red belt that she called a hip wrap. So that's why you bought that red dress, said Georgie. Fancy making all these, said Mia. You're so clever. And the rest of us totally agreed. We wore our hip wraps over our jeans, and some of us had to go more red on our top halves too. I happened to have a red t-shirt, so that was perfect. Katie had the most beautiful red sequin top with floaty sleeves. She'd also got brilliant red trainers. Jess had made red flowers out of paper for our hair. I couldn't make mine stay in because my hair is so straight and fine. So in the end, I pinned it to the top of my jeans. Naomi looked obviously wonderful because she had red and gold silk top and matching trousers, which she'd bought specifically for the Chinese weekend. It seems strange seeing her so dressed up, because although she's got some beautiful traditional African clothes, she only ever brings one or two of them to school in case she has a photo shoot or something. Normally, she just wears jeans and tracky bums and things, like everyone else. Mrs. Carroll had put up a notice for the Year 7s, 8s and 9s to meet at 5 o'clock in the common room, because she wanted a brief talk about the swimming gala before the Chinese New Year celebration started. As my friends and I gathered with the others, everyone wondered what Mrs. Carroll wanted to talk about, since it was supposed to be Mrs. Mellor organising the swimming gala. Now, began Miss Carroll. First, a quick word to the Year 7s. Miss Mellor says that Hazeldene is very well represented for swimmers from years 8 and 9, but she's a bit thin on the ground for years 7s. In fact, we've only got Grace, Rihanna, and Yasmin. Does anyone else want to volunteer? Miss Mellor ought to put Grace down in for everything, said one of the Year 9s. She's like a torpedo. My stomach clenched at the sound of the dreaded word, and I quickly looked at the girl who had spoken, but she was smiling at me and giving me a big thumbs up. Yeah, go Grace to someone else, and my worry dissolved a little. It was lovely that people in Hazeldene seemed to want me to do well for the house, so I didn't have to worry that anyone here thought of me as a show-off. But I still felt anxious, because what if I would let my house down? I so wish people would understand that swimming isn't my best sport. I can't do it on my own. I really can't, I said in a bit of a panic. I need Rihanna and Yasmin and anyone else who wants to join in. There are loads of brilliant swimmers in the other houses. Yes, it's true. Beach House have got finished out, haven't they? One of the Year 8s said she's the best swimmer in Year 7. Another Year 8 joined in. Then there are those two girls in Willowhaven, who hang out together all the time. What are they called? Phoebe and Hannah, said Naomi. That's right, they're amazing. So is no one else volunteering? Asked Miss Carroll. There was a silence apart from a few mumbles, and lots of people shook their heads. Well, have a think and let me know. It'd be great if Hazeldene had a real strong team, said Miss Carroll. On to the next thing, then. Designed for the cover of the Swimming Gala program. Every year there's a competition where each house can submit one entry, and Mrs. Carmichael secretly chooses a favourite design, but only tells the other staff. As you know, the gala is an international event with no parents attending, but the staff all get programs, and at the start of the gala, they reveal the front cover, which is always very exciting. The house with the winning design gains 5 points towards the overall house cup at the end of term. An added bonus is that the cover is always printed in the school magazine. Mrs. Carroll flicked her head from side to side, looking over us all to see if anyone was volunteering for the job of designing a front cover, and surprisingly no one seemed interested. If the impressions on their faces of the year 8s and 9s were anything to go by. "You ought to do it, Jess," I whispered, said Katie, and Katie heard me. "We're volunteering Jess, Miss Carroll," she said, grinning. Jess was staring at me at the wall, and I knew her imagination would be working away. "Go, Jess," said one of the year 9s. "Is that all right with you, Jessica?" asked Miss Carroll. Jess lost the dreamy look in her eyes and nodded. "Okay." There were more whoops of delight from the older girls, and one of them said she was glad we'd finally got a good artist in Hazeldene. Mrs. Carroll smiled. "Excellent. Let's forget all about swimming things now and get on to the reason we're really here. I've written out this evening's special Chinese New Year's Eve menu. Feast your eyes on the skills." She unrolled a large sheet of yellow paper and tacked it to the wall, and everyone started reading it out loud. Personally, I liked the look of the poems, which were supposed to be for liveliness and happiness, and the raw fish salad to bring good luck. I'm used to eating raw fish at home in Thailand, in fact. It's one of the things I really miss when I'm in England. But quite a few of the girls weren't too sure about it. But didn't matter though, because there were so many other lovely Chinese dishes. "After dinner, you've got the choice of playing organised games or watching telly," said Miss Fosbrook. Then we've got a fire to spy on the field. The whole evening turned out to be such good fun, and that we wish Chinese New Year happened more than once a year. The next day was also great because we exchanged presents in the dorm before breakfast. My friends all loved the presents I gave them, which were like dragonfly ornaments made of wood, painted in different designs. If you put the hook of the dragonfly's head on your finger, it would balance, and you could tap its tail to make it rock up and down. Jess gave us all tiny photos of themselves that she'd taken and put into frames that she'd made out of wire and shells. They were so clever and sweet. Yumi bought us beautiful scented candles. Maya gave us just sticks. Katie's presents were little wristbands made out of the same rare materials as our hip wraps, and decorated with a few gold sequins. And Georgie gave us liqueur whirls. After breakfast, we went round all the other houses saying Happy Chinese New Year to as many people as we could, but we missed quite a lot because most people were out visiting too. I wonder whether I'd come across Felissa in Beach House or Hannah and Bibi in Willow Haven, but I didn't, which was quite a relief. The house staff gave us our presents next. Miss Carroll and the other two in Hazeldene had bought body glitter for the year 11s, bath oils for the year 10s, tiny Chinese lanterns for the year 9s, sweet little wooden egg cups for the year 8s, and miniature Chinese calendars for the year 7s. It was so kind of them, and everyone was thanking them like mad and giving them hugs. When they had finished, I decided to go swimming. I felt quite happy about going on my own, and couldn't wait to get into the pool and start working on my front crawl. Trying out the technique of breathing on every third stroke that Mrs. Mellor had now helped me with. As I went into the pool, building up, I wondered whether I'd be chosen from Hazeldene to do front crawl in the swimming gala, and who might be chosen from the other houses. It would be very likely to be Felissa from Beach House and Hannah from Willow Haven, but I wasn't certain about Oakley for Zash and Elmhurst. Just before I went into the changing room, I saw that the big notice board had been stripped bare, and at the top it now said Swimming Gala in huge letters. Below there were 3 headings: Year 7, Year 8, and Year 9. And the space underneath was ready for the lists of the competitors for all the different races. On the little pen board at the side, there was a notice about the competition to design the front cover for the gala program, and as I read it, I was aware of someone walking out of the building behind me. As soon as they'd gone past, I turned to see that it was Hannah and Bibi, their wet hair dripping down their backs. Good, that means that I didn't have to put up with them staring at me while I was trying to concentrate on working on my strokes. I got changed really quickly and did a racing dive straight into the pool from one of the blocks, because I thought it would be good practice for the actual swimming gala. I swam 2 lengths and I had a quick rest before I did another 2, to get used to pacing myself over the distance. There weren't many people in the pool, so it was one of the best swims I'd had, and I felt really invigorated going back into the changing room. But then something terrible happened. The black sweatshirt I'd been wearing seemed to be missing. I looked all over for it and checked my bag 3 times, then under the benches and everywhere, but it had simply disappeared. Someone must have taken it by mistake. I wet my towel on my top half and shivered as I remembered Hannah and Bibi leaving the building earlier. Had they come back into the changing room after I'd gone into the pool, deliberately taken my sweatshirt? No, that was a ridiculous thought. I must be getting paranoid. I sat down heavily. I hadn't got any of the top. I'd have to walk back to Hazeldean in the cold air with my wet towel around me. Then I'd probably catch a chill. Is that what Hannah and Bibi wanted? This time I didn't throw the thought away quite so quickly, and found myself wondering whether this was their way of trying to put me off entering the swimming gala. If only I'd had my phone with me, I could have asked Jess to bring another top over. But actually, thinking about it, it would be better if Jess and the others didn't know anything about this. I could just hear Mia's voice. This is the last straw, Grace. You've absolutely got to tell Miss Cowell what's been going on, and if you don't, I will. Instead of running back to Hazeldean, clutching the towel tightly, my head spinning with thoughts about how I could possibly explain where my sweatshirt was. When I got back to the dorm and the others saw me wearing a towel, it wasn't easy running with both hands gripping the towel tight and one hand clutching my bag at the same time. But by the time I went in through the front door, I managed to work out a story about dropping my sweatshirt on the changing room floor, standing on it with my trainers on by mistake, deciding it was too wet and murky that I put it straight into the laundry. I felt the story sounded totally believable, though I hated that I was lying again. I was about to rush upstairs when I stopped in my tracks, because hanging over the bottom of the banister was the sweatshirt. I pulled it off and checked the name tag. There wasn't one. It might have peeled off because Mum had used the iron-on soft name tags in some of my clothes. The label said extra small, which was my size, and I was also saying it was mine because it was still quite new looking. So as no one was around, I quickly put the sweatshirt on, then walked upstairs slowly trying to work out what must have happened and why. Black sweatshirts were part of the Silver Spires uniform. Maybe someone had lost their own sweatshirt and gone to see if they'd left it in the swimming changing rooms. Then they'd come across mine and made a genuine mistake, thinking it was their own. Yes, that was it. It must just be a mistake and nothing for me to worry about. It would be ridiculous to get neurotic about every little innocent thing that happened. All the same, I couldn't tell the others, just to be on the safe side. I broke into a jog as I went up the last 2 flights of stairs. I didn't want anything to spoil this lovely weekend, so I tried to ignore the little niggling voice at the back of my mind saying, "How can anyone have taken your sweatshirt by mistake, Grace, when it was in your bag with the rest of your things?" Chapter 6. On Saturday night, I did what I told myself I wouldn't do again and went online pretending to be Georgie. I couldn't help it. My mind just wouldn't let me ignore the little voice I was trying hard to shut out. And the thing with my sweatshirt had stirred up all my worries and bad feelings again. This time I was actually brave enough to write a message. Chinese NY was cool, wasn't it? I looked at what had written for ages without sending it to. Though, would Georgie write something like that? Probably not. I changed it to She Knew NY WS So Cool. As I was sending the message, I wondered whether it might be better to come right out and say, "It's Grace here. Someone took my sweatshirt from the changing room this morning, and I've got a pretty good idea who it was, and if they think they're putting me off swimming training, they're wrong, because I'm just ignoring their pathetic games." Imagining myself writing those words somehow made me feel strong and determined again. I didn't dare actually write them, of course, but I stayed online for 20 minutes, joining in with the Chinese New Year chat, because I knew the others were occupied watching the 100 best comedy moments ever, thinking I was emailing photos to my parents from the weekend celebrations. No nasty messages appeared, thank goodness, and I felt massively relieved when I went to join the others. The next evening I was tempted to go back online, but Georgie was on the computer, so I couldn't. Good old Georgie had been true to her word and not gone any chat room messaging, since she promised not to, which made me feel even more guilty for pretending to be her online. These days she just stuck to emailing her family and texting her friends. The following day, though, I made an excuse and went off to the computer room while Georgie was helping a Year 11 girl learn some lines for a play that her drama group were doing. This time, there were loads of people online. My stomach tightened when I saw the name Torpedo Girl. With shaking fingers I typed, "Hey, what's new?" And a moment later, Torpedo Girl wrote, "Yo, George, I'm a mole and I live in a hole." I didn't have the faintest clue what she was talking about, but someone called Hoogie Bear then wrote, "He's got the whole world in his hands." I quickly clicked the away button so they'll think I wasn't getting their messages because I didn't like not getting in on their joke. Next, Carrie B, who must have been Carrie Bennett from Hazeldean Road, "What you on about?" But then signed out straight away. Torpedo Girl and Hoogie Bear didn't say anything else, but shortly after a few username came up, wholeheartedly. Whoever it was wrote, I got a hole in one today." And that was when the door opened behind me and I had to sign out as fast as possible and pretend I was just leaving. Jess sat down beside me and I tried not to go red. "Are you okay, Grace?" she asked. "You look all anxious." Her eyes seemed to be searching my face for clues, but I somehow managed to smile and say I was just tired. "What have you been doing?" "Looking up stuff on the internet for science." In one way, it was easy to like Jess because she wasn't in the same science group as me, and she knew I was always looking up things on the internet. So it sounded totally truthful. But in another way, it was terrible lying to my best friend, and I hated myself for it. Later, I was reading in bed, not taking in a single thing. I went over and over those messages in my mind. In the end, I decided that it didn't matter whether people wanted to have private jokes or not. It was stupid of me to have got involved, and I made a new, stricter resolution never to go in the chat room again. Then I wouldn't have to lie to Jess anymore either. Miss Miller was in a great mood at the beginning of our swimming squad session, and we were all getting changed. She told us she'd roughly worked out who would be swimming in all the various races in the gala, and she decided for definite by the end of the session. I shivered, because the first half of the term was racing away, and the swimming gala was so near that then we all went back to our chatter as Miss Miller went through to the pool. Felissa was wearing a different swimsuit from usual, and I must have been staring because she smiled brightly and says, "Want a photo, Grace?" "Sorry," I mumbled. "I was just looking at your swimsuit. It's really nice." "Thanks." She stood in front of the mirror and started scooping her hair into a ponytail as I went through to the pool. It was true I didn't really like Felissa because she obviously didn't particularly like me, but at least I wasn't worrying about her being the bully anymore. "Right, girl," said Miss Miller after we'd warmed up and done a bit of free swimming. "I'd like to practice the racing dive." She reeled off 12 names, including mine and Leanna's from Hazeldean, and she also included Felissa, Bibi, and Hannah. Then she sent everyone else to the shallow end to work on kickboard and pull buoy drills, which is where you split the strokes up into different parts, so you're practicing the arms and the legs separately. Miss Miller then lined us 12 up in threes. Behind the blocks, she put me at the front, with two girls from Elmhurst behind me. I didn't want to go first, it made me feel too much unsure. "Now, girls, when it's the gala, I will say, on the blocks, please. So front four people do that now, please." I stepped onto the block, feeling a bit nervous, as though this really was the gala. I will then say, "Take your marks." That's when you move to the front of the block. Yes, that's right, knees bent. She suddenly asked everyone to look at me. See how Grace's body is coiled, ready to explode on the starting gun. I felt an even bigger wave of nervousness roll over me. I've been to quite a few swimming competitions back in Thailand, but there had always been a whistle, not a gun. This was suddenly seemed really official. "Excellent, Grace. Knees bent a little more." And just as Mrs. Miller said that, I distinctly heard a giggle from behind me. but I really didn't turn around. I felt a bit stupid standing in this position, but there was nothing I could do because Mrs. Miller was carrying on. Now, this next bit is when you fling your arms and body forwards in order to enter the water as far down the pool as possible. I wasn't sure whether Mrs. Miller meant me to actually do the dive, so I just bent my knees slightly more, which meant sticking my bum out a bit to make myself perfectly steady. And this time the giggle was so loud that I straightened back up instantly and turned round. The Elmhurst girls had gone a bit pink and were trying to keep their faces straight. I glanced at the girls waiting at the next door block. It was Felissa and her friend Casey, and they were both smirking. "What's amusing you girls?" Miss Miller asked impatiently. Felissa's mouth instantly stopped grinning, but you could still see a mocking amusement in her eyes. At least I could see Casey was looking down. The girls from Elmhurst looked embarrassed now, and everyone else just looked puzzled, even Bibi and Hannah. I demonstrated again, and this time I had to actually dive in. But it wasn't my best because I definitely heard someone snigger, and it put me off. Mrs. Miller said my dive was absolutely fine, though, which made me feel a bit better. Still, I couldn't work out why people had been giggling. Did I look funny with my bottom sticking out? Surely we all looked the same in that position, but when the others tried it, I noticed there wasn't any laughter. I tried to forget about it for the rest of the session, but didn't really succeed until the end, when we were each given a pair of small flippers. I felt real brilliant going so much faster than usual, and as Mrs. Miller said, it really did help us with our strokes. In the changing room, Evie was a bit hyper, telling me about the present she received at Chinese New Year. But she suddenly stopped her exciting flow, and I wondered what was the matter. "Look, Grace, there's a hole in the back of your swimsuit. I've just spotted it in the mirror." I craned my neck around to look at the mirror, and saw with horror that she was right. There, in the middle of the bottom of my swimsuit, was a definite hole. I moved it to the far end of the changing room, quickly wrapped my towel around me, and pulled the costume off to have a proper look. My stomach turned over as I realized it wasn't just worn out, it had been cut with a pair of scissors. "Let's see," said Evie, coming over a moment later, but I had already wrapped my costume up in a towel by then. "Oh, it's nothing much," I said as lightly as I could. I caught it on the corner of my drawer, and I pulled it a bit violently. I tried to force out a giggle, my own stupid fault. Thank goodness Kitty's good at sewing. Eve was only just smiling. "You seem pretty excited, relaxed about it, Grace. I'd be going mad if that was me." I hoped my loud heartbeat wasn't giving away how I felt. "Well, I've had this swimsuit for ages, and I've got another one, so..." She nodded and carried on rubbing her hair, while I glanced across at Bibi, who was keeping herself to herself and not taking any notice of anything going on around her. I looked at the girls from Elmhurst, who giggled when I was demonstrating the diving technique. I could hear them talking to other girls from other house about entering the program design competition. Her eyes moved round to Felissa, who was carefully folding her clothes, and I thought back to how she and Casey had smirked at me. I was shivering by then. Jess came to meet me after the squad session, and we walked towards puzzled Evie. I found myself tensing up, worrying that Evie might mention the hole in my costume. I knew Jess would want to see it, and then she'd be sure to insist on marching me to Mrs. Cow to explain about the messages and everything. At first, it was easy to keep the conversation away from swimming squad, because Jess wasn't in the mood for talking. She linked her arm through mine and was strolling along, staring at the sky. "It looks like marble with veins from steel in it, doesn't it?" she said in her soft voice. "Why don't you get your camera and take a picture, Jess?" I asked on a burst of inspiration. "I don't think it'll work. The light's not good enough." She suddenly seemed to snap out of her dreamy mood. "Anyway, how was swimming squad?" "Well," said Evie, "we got to wear flippers. Not those great big things, little ones that feel like an extension of your legs. It was cool, wasn't it, Grace?" "Yeah, great. What did you do in art, Jess?" "I worked on my entry for the swimming gala program, but I don't want to say what it is till it's finished." Jess grinned at Evie and changed the conversation back to the swimming gala. "Flippers? You lucky things. Why don't you get to wear flippers in ordinary swimming lessons?" You ought to ask," said Evie. I urgently wanted to get away from the swimming pool. Can't I see your competition entry, Jess? I said to Brill. You can when it's finished, said Jess. Then she stopped and smiled into the distance, and I thought she'd be thinking about her design, but it turned out she was picturing us all in our flippers. I bet you were a little shoal of little fishes gliding up and down. Yes, and one fish had a hole in its swimsuit, said Evie, pointing to the top of my head tragically. My heart sank as the whole smile dropped off Jess's face and she turned to me. Oh no, how did that happen? I rolled my eyes as though I was cross with myself. I think it was when I yanked it out of my drawer. An actual hole, though? I nodded and shrugged. Never mind, I've got my other costume. Gotta go, folks, said Evie, turning off down the little lane that led to Oakley House. See you later. As soon as she'd gone, Jess wanted to see my swimming costume and wouldn't take no for an answer. I knew something was making you anxious, Grace, she said as she poked her finger through the hole. I could feel you all tense as we were walking, and no wonder, the frown deepened. Look, it's right in the very middle. Are you sure this happened when you pulled it out of your drawer? It looks to be like it's been cut with scissors. Her eyes softened as she turned to me. Did anyone see it? I gave up trying to pretend it wasn't bothered, and I started explaining about the girls in Armhurst giggling, and Felissa and Casey smirking when it had to demonstrate the racing dive. It wasn't mean. It was them who did it, I quickly added. They might have just been laughing because the hole looked funny. Jess looked furious. Laughing's bad enough, but I can't believe that anyone would be so nasty that they actually ruined someone's costume, I said in a hiss. She said in a hiss. You've absolutely got to tell Miss Mellor or Miss Carroll now, Grace. I don't want to, I blurted out. I can't prove anything. But it's not just a couple of messages anymore. A horrible guilt swept over me. Jess would have been even more shocked if she'd known about my sweatshirt and the other messages that I'd seen in secret. My guilt mingled with big alarm. It worried me so much that there was talk of telling teachers. But the messages might not have been anything to do with this, I pointed out. Jess wasn't listening. I've just thought of something, he said in a breathless voice. Someone's actually been in our dorm. How else would they have got hold of your swimsuit? Do you think it was during Chinese weekend? I shivered, hating the conversation. The more we talked about messages and holes, the worse it all seemed. But Jess was determined to get to the bottom of it. Come on, let's see what the others think. She started to walk off, but I grabbed her arm and spoke really urgently. No, Jess, I don't want the others to know. Why not? She looked at me as though I was mad. Because they might tell someone, thinking it's the best thing to do, even if I told them not to. Jess was silent, the whole expression set in a question mark. So I grabbed on, trying to convince her that it was best to keep it to ourselves. There's no proof of who's been messaging and who's done this haul and whether it's the same person, and there's no way to find out. I don't want big announcements in assembly or anything like that. I'd feel stupid after the stuff I put my stopwatch going missing. If I just ignore it or maybe it'll just go away. Promise me you won't say anything, Jess. A look of major alarm had come over Jess's face. As I'd been talking, I had to wait for ages before she eventually nodded and sighed. Well, if you're sure. Yes, I'm certain. But what's going to happen next? Nothing. I'll wear my spare costume and act normal. I don't want to give anyone the satisfaction of thinking they've upset me. I just want to find out for definite who it is who hates me so much. Jess suddenly looked at me with dark eyes. It's their problem if they hate you, you know, and I think it's cool how sensible and strong you're being, Grace. And actually, thinking about it, sooner or later, the bully is sure to give themselves away. We just have to wait. We walked the rest of the way to Hazeldene in silence, each in our own little worlds. Torpedo Gal and Huggy Bear were on a mission to humiliate and stop me from swimming. Jess thought I was sensible and strong, but right now I felt sick. How could I carry on pretending I wasn't bothered when inside I was hurting so much? When I came to the swimming lesson on Friday, Katie and Naomi both asked why I wasn't wearing my other swim costume, and I just said I felt like a change. Then Katie said the turquoise colour really suited me, which was nice of her. Going through to the pool, I noticed Hannah was sitting in the spectators area, talking to Mrs. Miller, so she'd obviously been given permission not to swim. Kitty and Naomi hardly gave her a second glance, just slithered into the water, doing over-the-top gasps about how cold it was. They seemed to have completely forgotten about the skinny loser message that Georgie had seen. I was glad. It helped me to kid myself that everything was normal. But as I swam to the deep end, I started to feel even more uncomfortable, with Hannah watching me, than when she was swimming too. The whole session was devoted to backstroke. I wasn't very good at it because I kept going on off course like Evie had done in swimming squad. At one point, I actually swung my arm back and hit someone by mistake. "Oh, sorry," I said before I'd seen who it was. "Are you all right?" I got a shock to find out it was BB, but surprisingly, she didn't look cross. "It's okay, you only hit my shoulder." I was on the point of carrying on swimming again, and she said, "Grace?" Yes, I kept my face completely straight, and I was dreading her saying something horrible. Nothing. Couldn't stop thinking about that for the rest of the lesson, wondering what BB had been going to say. Then, as we trooped out of the changing room at the end, I heard someone ask BB what was the matter with Hannah. "She's not feeling well," BB replied. I glanced at Hannah. She was sitting very still and just kind of stared into space. I'd never seen her looking like that before, kind of lost. Maybe my plan was working and she realized her nasty bullying was having no effect and at all on me, so now she didn't know what to do. I hoped I was right. It made me feel strong. That evening I emailed my family, and when I'd finished I tried to make myself simply leave the computer room, but my curiosity was just too great, and before I knew it, I'd gone into the chat room and typed in George's password. Just this once, I promised myself, just this one last time. Immediately I took a sharp breath at the sight of the name Torpedo Gal. She wrote, "Hiya babes, missing you." Then Huggy Bear wrote, "That's the missing link." My heart turned over as I realized that was happening. First they were messaging about holes, and next thing a hole suddenly appeared in my swimsuit. Now they were messaging about something missing. I felt something trembling. That meant something was about to go missing, like what I asked the empty room. I closed my eyes. I guessed the answer to that question. Then I opened them wide. No, surely they wouldn't actually steal my swimming costume. Chapter 7. A minute later, I was racing downstairs to the dining room in the basement. My whole body was shaking. I couldn't help thinking about the time when my sweatshirt had gone missing. And now here I was again, but this time it felt worse. I was so sure I was going to find out that my swimsuit costume had disappeared. We all hang our costumes in the drying room when we don't actually want to put them in the laundry. And when I got there, I rushed to the far corner where I'd left mine earlier. I nearly cried relief to see that it was still there. It wasn't quite dry, but I didn't want to take any risks, so I grabbed it quickly and went up to the door. Mia was reading on the bed. I was about to put my costume in the drawer, where I always keep it, when I realized I had to be more careful now. So when I was sure Mia was definitely absorbed in her book, I stuffed the costume in one of my big dressing gown pockets. Wasn't quite pleased with that hiding place. No one could ever think of looking for it there. Then I wondered whether it might be easy to just keep it in my school bag and walk around with it all through the day. But that wouldn't work because we have to leave our bags outside the dining room hall when we go for meals. The next day I nipped back to Hazeldene wherever I could get away from the others without drawing attention to myself. I would stick my hand inside my dressing gown pocket with a racing heart and breathe a huge sigh of relief as my fingers touched the costume. Then on Sunday morning I decided to go swimming before breakfast. I chose that time because I was pretty sure that there'd be hardly anyone there. Jess was still half asleep in bed. "Do you want me to come with you?" she asked me in her sleep mumble, as I call it. "No, it's okay," I whispered. "See you at breakfast." One thumb appeared over the duvet, so I took that as a yes. I was right about the swimming pool being practically empty. When I first got in, there were just 4 year 9 girls swimming up and down. They spread right out, and I felt like a bit of an intruder when I started swimming. They didn't say anything, just all shifted a little bit to give me most of a lane to myself. I really wanted to practice backstroke, but I didn't dare in case I crashed into one of them. so I kept to front crawl and try to breathe exactly how Mrs. Mellor had shown me. After a few lengths, I felt myself get into a rhythm. There's something brilliant about swimming before breakfast. My dad and I used to do it all the time, and I always remember him saying, "Sets you up for the day, Grace, doesn't it? And the breakfast tastes 10 times better afterwards." I think I'd done about 10 minutes before when BB got into the pool, and Hannah went to sit in the spectator area again, looking fed up. My spirits instantly sank, and I wished I hadn't bothered to come. I'd been just starting to enjoy my training, and now it was all spoiled. Surprisingly, they both gave me a half smile, but I didn't give one back because I couldn't trust that the smiles were genuine. BB got into the same lane as one of the year 9s and started doing the perfect backstroke without even straying out of the lane. I so wish I could do that. After a few minutes, one of the year 9s stopped swimming. Then as soon as the other 3 finished their next length, all 4 of them got out, breathing heavily and quietly saying, "Well done," to each other, which just left me and BB. I could feel her eyes on me as I carried on with my front crawl. I really wanted to change the backstroke because it was the perfect time to practice it now. The pool was so deserted, but I wasn't confident enough to do that in front of BB. Grace, I turned to see her standing up at the shallow end, and her shoulders rounded as though she was cold. My heart was beating faster than usual as I looked at her and waited. "I don't suppose you could show me how to do a tumble turn, could you? I can't seem to get the hang of it, and I think Mrs. Mellor's fed up with explaining it to me." The first thought was that it was a trick, but I say that she was sucking her lips in and looking really worried. Yes, I suppose." I glanced at Hannah as I swam towards BB. She was looking down at her hands in her lap. You have to try not to break the rhythm of the stroke." BB nodded. I shot another quick look at Hannah, half expecting her to be smirking at herself, but she was leaning forwards now with an interested look in her face. "So you work out which is your best arm to push yourself down into the somersault," I carried on hesitantly, and BB kept nodding and frowning. I couldn't believe she was listening to me so intently. "And be ready with that arm when you're ready at the side, but make sure you leave yourself enough turning time." "Shall I try it?" asked BB. "Yes, I'll watch you from the side." So I got out and sat with my knees drawn up. BB used her left arm to push down, and I noticed she held her nose with the other hand. I realized instantly that was the problem. "You see, I'm rubbish," she says, coming back to the surface and treading water. "You're not," I quickly said, forgetting all about messages and holes for a moment. "It's just that you've got to try to do it without holding your nose." She looked a bit shamefaced. "I know, Miss Mel keeps telling me that. I tried it once, only the water went up my nose and it really hurt. Then afterwards I was spluttering so much I decided never to try it again." "It'll be all right as long as you breathe out through your nose all the time you're doing it." She looked doubtful. "Are you sure?" "Yes, honestly. Imagine you're trying to blow bubbles through your nose. Just do half a turn at first to get used to it." She did it. So she did. And when she came up, she looked much more confident. "Yes, you're right. It works. I'm going to try a full one now. Here goes." She swam from about halfway up the pool, did a perfect tumble turn without holding her nose, and came up grinning like mad. "I did it. Oh, wow, I actually did it." I couldn't help laughing because she looked so happy, and from the spectator area, Hannah broke into applause and did a whoop. Even the lifeguard looked impressed and gave BB a thumbs up. "Oh, thank you, Grace. You ought to be a swimming instructor, you know." Her mind was reeling as I suddenly realized that here I was having a lovely time with BB and Hannah, and only a few minutes before I'd been totally scared of them. "I don't suppose you can give me any tips on how to do backstroke in a straight line, can you, BB?" "Well, I'll try, but I'm not sure what to tell you, really. I'll just seem to go straight." Hannah stood up. I always look at some kind of mark on the wall," she called out. "Then every 4 strokes, I check I'm still in line with it. If you check more often than that, it puts you off your stroke." She pointed to the far wall. "You could use the wall frame or whatever's right opposite you when you set off." "Oh, thanks," I called back. "I'll try that." So I did, and it worked, which got me another round of applause from Hannah and a big smile from BB. I was totally certain now that I got it completely wrong. about these girls, and I couldn't help feeling guilty. They must have thought I was really stuck up before, because whenever they looked at me, they'd looked away. I wanted this funny time to carry on for longer so they could realize I was a nice person, really. Are you still not feeling well, Hannah? I asked. She glanced at the lifeguard, then shook her head, which I thought probably meant that she didn't want to say anything with grown-ups listening. So I swam to the spectator end and got out of the pool. When do you think you'll be able to start swimming again? I asked quietly. She shrugged and looked down. Then Baby got out and raised her eyebrows at Hannah. I knew what that look was saying. I was asking Hannah if it was okay to tell me something secret. Hannah shrugged again and Baby whispered, "The thing is, Hannah's costume has gone missing." Hannah shrugged again and Baby whispered, "The thing is," my stomach yo-yoed. There it was. I saw instantly this time. The missing link. Only it wasn't my costume that had gone missing. It was Hannah's. Just don't get it, said Hannah. I put it in the laundry, and when I went to get my pile of stuff, my swimsuit wasn't there. I checked with our matron, and she said she was sure it was there when she sorted through everything. She was going to ask around to see if one of the other girls took it by mistake, but obviously wouldn't. Why not? Hannah hung her head, which made me sorry I'd asked the question. Because no one's as big as me. All the other costumes are miles smaller. So how could anyone get them mixed up? Apart from me, said Phoebe, grinning, but I obviously haven't got it. My head was spinning, but not with thoughts about with emotions. I was so sad for Hannah, but I also felt the most enormous feeling of relief and happiness. Although there was still the tiniest feeling of uncertainty. What if Hannah and Phoebe were incredibly good actors, but this whole conversation was fake, and they were really the bullies? No, they couldn't possibly be acting. No one could act this well. I was certainly really tempted to tell them everything about the messages and the hole in my swimsuit and the connection that I'd just made between the messages with the word missing in it, and the fact that Hannah's costume was missing. But I tried to be sensible and not to go blurting things out until I thought them through a bit more. So you don't have a spare costume? I asked carefully. Hannah went red but didn't reply. I waited. Tell Grace, said Baby quietly. It took Hannah ages to speak. She seemed to be taking the biggest, slowest breath in the world. I don't have a spare one, no, so I phoned Mum, and she went mad and said it was the school's fault. Her costume was gone missing, and she refused to buy a new one because she thinks the school isn't making enough effort to find out what happened to it. Hannah bit her lip and looked down, so Baby carried on with the story. Miss Arsenal, our house mistress, asked if anyone had a spare one that Hannah could borrow, and one of the aides lent her one. And I tried it on, Hannah said in scaringly more than a whisper. Only it's too small, which is so embarrassing. I wondered if I ought to be saying something, but I can't think what to say. I just felt so sorry for Hannah. She seemed to be pulling the words from deep down inside me, so I'm like, pretending it's okay. But I've told Mrs. Arsenal I can't swim because of stomach cramps, which is a lie. Hannah's voice dropped, and so did her eyes. But I can't make the stomach cramps go on and on and on, and so I just don't know what to do. My heart was going out to Hannah. I'm sure your costume will turn up. I was cross with myself for not being able to think of anything more comforting to say. I tried again. Willowhaven would miss you like mad if you didn't swim. You're such a good swimmer. I wouldn't stand a chance if I don't even enter, she said miserably. But what does Miss Miller suggest? I've lied to her as well, Hannah said in a thin voice. I was racking my brain for something reassuring to say, but still couldn't think of anything, so I just murmured, "Poor you." Phoebe glanced up at the clock. "You better go to breakfast." "Yes. I'm really sorry about everything, Hannah." And I decided to check something out. You don't think anyone might have taken it on purpose? Hannah shook her head. Why would anyone want my swimming costume? She turned sadly to Baby. I'll wait for you outside. Baby and I were both wrapped up in our own thoughts and didn't talk at all in the changing room. until we were putting our socks and trainers on. Hannah and I didn't used to think you liked us, Grace. I felt some thoughts about how to reply crowded in my head as I slowly turned to face her, but none of them seemed right, so I just said, I didn't think you liked me either. She looked genuinely shocked and hurt. Why? I don't know. I thought you thought I was a show-off. She was sitting still as a statue with one sock in her hand. Why? A squirm feeling was taking me over. I looked down. You seemed to be watching me, kind of. Disapprovingly? Disapprovingly, I nodded. Oh, sorry, Grace. We didn't mean to stare or anything. The words came tumbling out. But Hannah and I always talk about you, how you're really skinny, and how we wish we looked like you, and everything. My heart missed a beat, but I recovered quickly. Just because she'd used the word skinny, it didn't mean anything. I was just double certain that Bibi and Hannah were being genuine. In fact, I felt totally awful for ever suspecting them. Sorry I didn't realize. It's okay. Then we went outside and we found Hannah hovering a little distance away and just photographing the swimming pool window. She must have been aware of me out of the corner of her eye, but carried on looking through her lens as she spoke. You were right, Grace. The window looked great with the sun shining on it. I could see reflections from outside and just a smugly traces of inside. But then the sun went in and I was just about to take the photo. Never mind. I heard the click of the shot being taken. Then Jess turned to me and her mouth actually made an O shape. She saw who I was with. I nearly laughed. Sorry, I'm just hearing noises. Where was I? I heard the click of the shot being taken. Then Jess turned to me and her mouth actually made an O shape. She saw who I was with. I nearly laughed. She looked so funny, but instead I went over and asked if I could look through her lens. Then as I took the camera from her, I quickly whispered that I trusted Bibi and Hannah now. Jess looked a bit confused at first, but she seemed to accept what I told her, and the four of us set off walking together like old friends, chatting about Jess's photography. Why did you want to take that picture of the pool window? Asked Bibi, looking puzzled. It was Grace's idea, actually, said Jess. Windows are the latest thing, you see, but I'm going to come back another time and take this one again when the sun's shining. I can get the reflection of the trees. She turned and eyed the windows of the beach house in the distance, then pointed to the very top one. It was a couple of centimeters, and the curtains were half closed. Windows like that are really interesting to me. I asked myself questions like, are there people in there? What are they doing? Do they want to get out? Or are they safe inside? Hang on a sec, I said. That's Felissa's dorm, isn't it? Hannah shrugged and pulled her face. I don't see Felissa, she said firmly, because she doesn't like me. How do you know? I asked hesitantly. Just do. She says she looks at me. The way she looks at me. And me, said Bibi quietly. I didn't say anything, but lots of thoughts were gathering in my mind. Perhaps Alyssa was the person behind everything that had happened, after all. Anyway, I was sick of all this uncertainty and worry, and poor Hannah was in a terrible state. I was suddenly filled with determination to find out who was the bully. I didn't know how on earth to go about it, but somehow I would, for Hannah's sake, and for mine. What's that noise? Look at that rubbish bag. I could have watched back down there. Chapter 8. It's usually netball practice after school on Mondays, but this Monday it was cancelled because his netball coach was ill. So I decided to go swimming instead. Bibi had texted me and asked if I was going swimming, and she said she thought she'd come along too. She told me that Hannah didn't want to because she was fed up with watching and not being able to join in. But what's she going to do when it comes to Thursday? I squealed when I met her outside the pool. It's the swimming gala. I know, we're both really worried about that. I think she's just kind of hoping her costume will turn up by some miracle. My mind was spinning. This was terrible. I had to think of a way of proving it was Felissa bullying me and Hannah. And I had to do it right now because time was running out. It gave me a bit of a shock to go through to the foyer and find that who should be standing in front of us notice with Stella and Casey but Felissa. She was stabbing her finger down the list and counting 1, 2, 3, 4. That's ridiculous. Billy rolled her eyes and scurried off into the changing room, but I stayed right where I was because of what I heard Felissa say next. She's in 4 races. This is so unfair. How many is Hannah in? Asked Casey. 3, said Stella, and so is Bibi. And Felissa immediately came back. And so am I. Miss Mellor must have made a mistake. Stella and Casey stayed quiet. But Felissa hadn't finished. Her voice was cold and hard. I bet I know what's happened. I bet Grace went greasing up to Mrs. Mellor and asked for another one. That's the kind of girl she is. One big show-off. Who thinks she's so wonderful at everything she does. My hackles rose, and before I had time to think, I blurted out, I am not. How dare you make up things about me, Felissa Streeter? I never asked Mrs. Mellor anything. Then I stood there, my shoulders tense and my body shaking with a mixture of anger and a kind of fear at my own boldness. Felissa swung round, her eyes flashing. I'm not making things up. Everyone thinks it. You train the whole time because you're obsessed with winning. I do not train the whole time. I saw her flick a sneering glance at my swimming bag. Well, that's what you're just about to do now. And with that, Felissa turned and stalked straight out of the building, but not before I heard her horrible voice ringing out. See? She didn't have an answer to that, did she? My body felt like a lead weight as I looked at the notice board. Before that conversation had happened, I wouldn't have minded finding out that I was the only one in year 7 to have been picked up for 4 races. But now I couldn't feel enthusiastic at all. I just felt shaky and afraid. Mrs. Mellor had me down for the 50 metres front crawl, the 50 metres backstroke, the medley relay, and the freestyle relay. I ran my finger down the list and saw that Felissa had been picked for 3 of the same races. I didn't drive training that day one little bit because of being so mad about Felissa. And I stayed mad for the next 2 days while my determination to prove that she was a bully grew stronger and stronger, even though I hadn't managed to come up with any plan yet. But when it came to swimming squad, my anger tipped over into a completely different feeling. You see, Hannah didn't turn up at all, and Bibi whispered to me that she was in bed, having to pretend that her stomach cramps had got much worse, and dreading admitting to Mrs. Ansdell that the spare swim costume she got from the year 8 girl was too small. See, she was crying when I saw her at lunchtime, said Bibi, because she'll have to miss the swimming gala, and she's missing lessons and everything, but she's still scared to tell the truth in case Mrs. Ansdell makes her try on someone else's spare costume and none of them will fit. I felt so sorry for Hannah and so powerless to help. Can you just go and explain to Mrs. Ansdell you saw? I asked Bibi. No, because Hannah's made me swear I wouldn't. Bibi was almost in tears herself by now. She wants it kept secret, Grace. You haven't told anyone, have you? I shook my head. Promise me you won't tell. I've been about to say that if I were to tell, I'd go ahead and tell Mrs. Ansdell anyway, but then I remember how I begged Jess and the others not to tell a teacher about the chat room messages and how upset I would have been if they ignored me and told Mrs. Carroll behind my back. I promise. I feel so helpless, said Bibi, and that was the precise moment that the most brilliant plan popped into my head, making me tingle all over because it was so clever. I couldn't concentrate properly in prep that evening, as my mind was spinning with thoughts of what I was going to do afterwards. As soon as it finished, I grabbed Jess and whispered, got something important to tell you. Come with me. A minute later, we were in the computer room. What are you doing? Asked Jess, totally aghast, as she watched me type in Georgie's password. I've done it before, it's okay. What? I didn't even turn round at the sound of her breathless gasp. I was on a mission, and nothing seemed to matter anymore except getting Felicia found out. Then I'd tell Hannah, and she could tell Mrs. Ansell, and Miss Ansell could arrange for Alyssa's dorm to be searched. She absolutely must have got Hannah's swimsuit hidden away somewhere. The bully is definitely Felicia, I gabbed. I'll explain how I know afterwards, but I really need your help, Jess. Jess was silent, but she seemed totally caught up with what I was doing. Her eyes were glued to the screen. Look, the name Torpedo Girl came up. I leaned forward. Is obsession good? I read out loud. There were 5 other people online, and one by one, 4 of them replied, no, of course not, rubbish, why? And then I typed in my own reply, who's obsessed? Finally Jess spoke. Wait, what are you doing, Grace? She asked anxiously. They'll think it's Georgie. I know, I want them to. Jess squished beside me on the chair. Why? So we can carry on with this conversation. Why? Because I'm going to catch Felicia out. Look, Torpedo Girl has replied, said Jess in a whisper, as though Torpedo Girl might be able to hear us. She read the message out loud, slowly. Grace, Grace. I felt my face flooding with colour. I'd never realised how close my name was to the word race. You're only jealous, I wrote. Jess stiffened beside me. Georgie's sure to find out you've been impersonating her, you know. I don't think she'll mind when she finds out why. This is important. Listen, Jess. But there was a reply already. You're joking. Jealous of her? She's a disgrace. Listen, Jess, I tried again as I stood up. I absolutely know it's Melissa because she actually said I was obsessed to my face this afternoon. She was counting on how many races I was going to be in the swim gala. She hates me, Jess, because I'm in more races than her, and swimming was always her thing, but I've still got to be totally sure it was her before I tell anyone else. Can you carry on pretending to be great Georgie and keep Melissa talking online? I was at the door now. Oh. Where are you going? Asked Jess with a panic in her eyes. To Beach House. There were butterflies in my stomach, but I had to be brave for Hannah's sake. It's 20 to 9. You know we're not allowed out after 8:30. So Jess, are you sure you're thinking straight, Grace? I nodded. But what shall I write? We've always known it was you sending pathetic messages, but you don't scare Grace, so you needn't have bothered. Jess's eyes widened. She probably never heard me sounding so full of fight. Yes, and you can say we also know it was her who ruined Grace's swimsuit, and she's going to pay for it because we're going to tell. I just need to see her writing it with her own eyes. Then we won't be able to deny it. And then I will go and tell Mrs. Cowell honestly, and you can say that we know she took my sweatshirt too. Jess looked totally stunned. Is that true, Grace? I nodded and bit my lip. I couldn't tell you. You would have had me go to a teacher. But what if Georgie comes in and sees what I'm doing? I was itching to get away. If my plan was to work, I had to go right now, as fast as I could, before Felissa signed off and went off to bed. But I felt sorry for Jess. I dragged her into the middle of our nasty drama. It's my fault, and I'm sorry, but it was all I could do to prove it's Felissa. The lost look in Jess's face stayed at the front of my mind all the time. I was running to Beach House. An older girl was just going out from the big front door, and she held it open for me. So I slipped inside and ran along the corridor by the stairs. I knew exactly where the computer room was from when we round all those boarding houses on Chinese New Year's Day. So far, I'd only seen one person. I was nearly there. My plan was working perfectly, apart from my heart thumping so loudly. I was praying that Jess had managed to keep Tornado Girl talking online, so I gathered together every last drop of courage I possessed and opened the door quietly to see Felissa and Casey hunched over the first of the computers and Stella on the one next to them. They must have been completely absorbed in what they were doing because none of them even seemed to realize anyone had come into the room. I crept forward and shaky legs until I was close enough to see the words Felissa was typing. I don't care what Grace thinks, she'll never be able to prove anything. And that was when I spoke in the harshest voice I could manage. Oh, won't she? I wish that Hannah had been there to see the look of big alarm on Felicia's face, when she swung round and saw me there. Her mouth fell open and the other two went white. For a split second I felt a lovely feeling of power, but then my knees nearly buckled at the sound of an icy voice behind me. What's going on here? I turned to see Mrs. Walton, the house mistress of Beach House. Her eyes also itching high, and when she saw me, they went even higher. I'm sorry, I don't know who you are, but I do know you're not from Beach House. And it's 8:45. You know perfectly well you should be in your own boarding house. Yes, but It suddenly seemed like an impossible job to try and explain that I had to do something wrong to make something else right. Miss Walton put her hands on her hips and tipped her head to one side, her eyes never leaning on my face. Well, I caught a look of triumph in Felicia's eyes, and just knew that she would have signed out of that live chat room by now. Felicia's been posting nasty messages about me in the chat room, I said, feeling my face flooding with colour as I realised the ridiculousness of what I was saying. That's a total lie, Miss Walton, honestly, said Felicia in a sugary voice, her face all innocent and with shock. I could have kicked myself for ever imagining that this whole plan was any good. It was utterly stupid because I hadn't thought it was through properly my eyes. Now Alicia's and the coldness I saw there shocked me. But there was a second later she turned to Miss Walton with her innocent expression back in place. And Grace and her friends have been writing really horrid things. Miss Walton fixed me with her icy glare, and I didn't dare defend myself. I wish I could sit down, my body felt so weak. Her tone was brisk. Which house are you in? Hazeldene. Right, you better get back there straight away. I'll phone Mrs. Kell to tell her that you're on your way. But nothing. I'm fed up with this silly chat room nonsense. I've said right from the word go that it could lead to trouble, and now it has done. Perhaps the school might come to its senses and shut it down. I didn't look at Felicia again, just crept out of the room and out of Beach House. Then I jogged back to Hazeldene with leaned legs, working out what on earth I was going to say to Mrs. Cowley. If Jess was in trouble too, I'd never be able to forgive myself for conducting such a terrible plan. Not only had it not worked, but it had made things 10 times worse now. Mrs. Walton was talking about shutting down the chat room. Mrs. Cowell was waiting for me at the front door. Grace, she said, looking horrified. Whatever are you doing out so late? I couldn't believe it when Mrs. Walton phoned just now. I took a deep breath. I could only repeat what I said to Mrs. Walton, but I desperately hoped that Mrs. Cowell might be more understanding. Someone's been sending nasty messages about me in the chat room, and I didn't know who it was, but I had a strong feeling and I just needed to prove it to myself. I couldn't think of any other way of doing it. I had to actually catch the person out, you see, and now I have to. Mrs. Cowell looked very serious. And who was it? Felicia Streeter. I see. She looked down and I could tell she wasn't sure what to say. Well, we'll talk about it tomorrow, and in the meantime, off you go to bed. She didn't exactly smile, but she didn't look quite so cross either. The moment I went into the dorm, Jess grabbed me. Are you okay? What happened? The others were all looking at me with big curiosity, and I wasn't sure how much they knew about what had been going on. Where have you been? Asked Georgie. I sighed as I grabbed my wash bag. It's a long story. Jess came with me to the bathroom, and I explained in a gabble all that had happened. Then I remembered that I wasn't the only one in the horrible drama. And what about you? Did you get discovered? She shook her head. Felicia wrote some pretty horrible things, though, she said, wrinkling her nose. Like what? Carry on about obsession and stuff? And what did you write back? I just said she was talking rubbish, basically. Thanks, Jess, I said, giving her a hug. Goodness knows what's going to happen now, I added quietly. I know I've made everything a 100 times worse, but at least I've proved to myself that it's definitely Felicia. I was drying my face when I suddenly remembered to think that Felicia had said earlier that hurt me the most. Jess. She waited. Do you think everyone thinks I'm a show-off? In a flash, her arm was around my shoulders. Of course they don't. No one thinks you're a show-off, apart from Felicia. She looked at me carefully in the mirror. There's more to that than that, though, isn't there, Grace? I fiddled with my towel and saw that her eyes were full of sympathy. Shall we call friendship meeting so you can tell us all what's going on? And I nearly said no, but then I realised there was no need to worry that they'll tell an adult anymore because 2 adults already knew, so it wouldn't make any difference. So I realised that I was tired of keeping everything to myself. I couldn't say anything about Hannah because I'd promised not to, but it would be a big relief to share my own secrets. Okay. The anxious look left Jess's face immediately, and I knew I made a good decision. Chapter 9. I usually wake up easily in the mornings, but the morning after our friendship meeting, I felt exhausted. After Mrs. Farnsworth had been in to check our lights were out and were all quiet, we'd got up and sat on the ground rug talking for ages and ages. I told my friends absolutely everything except the bit about Hannah, and they'd been so kind and sympathetic that I felt like bursting into tears quite a few times. Mia said she thought I'd been very brave to keep it all to myself, and Naomi said she was sure that everything would be sorted out. Once I'd had a good talk to Mrs. Carroll, but I wasn't so sure myself. Before breakfast, Matron told me in a serious voice that Mrs. Carroll wanted to see me after lunch, so I swept the whole morning worry about that, what she said. Spent the whole morning worrying about what she'd say. When I went to her flat straight after lunch, I even took my swimming costume with me so I could show her. I've spoken to Mrs. Walton properly now, and she's heard Felicia's side of the story, began Mrs. Carroll. So I just need to hear what you've got to say, Grace. It suddenly seemed very unfair that I hadn't really done anything wrong, except for going out of the boarding house after 8:30, and yet here I was having to explain my side of the story. I took a deep breath and reminded myself of how Naomi had said she was sure it would be fine once I'd explained everything. Then I started talking. I began with the first message Georgie had got. But when I said it out loud, it sounded stupid. The expression on Mrs. Carroll's face didn't change, so I told her what the other messages had said. She even kept her grave look in place when I showed her the hole in my swimsuit and explained about the messages with the word hole in them, and I could feel my hands getting sweaty, and I was careful not to mention Hannah at all. So I finished up by saying that I had to actually catch Felicia typing a nasty message about me to prove that she was the bully. And did you catch her out? Asked Mrs. Carroll in a low voice. My mouth felt dry. Yes, she was writing, I don't care what Grace thinks, she'll never be able to prove anything. Mrs. Carroll blinked in surprise. Really? Well, that's most odd, because Felicia says she wasn't writing anything at all to do with you, and that she's never written anything about you in her life. And she had no idea why you rushed in on her like that. I stared at Mrs. Carroll in amusement, and was on the point of accusing Felicia of lying when I swallowed my words. I mustn't say anything to make things worse. But what about this? I showed her the swimsuit again. It's definitely been cut. Yes, I agree it does look as though it's been cut, but I agree to look at this carefully, Grace, because I'm afraid it's a big leap from your swimsuit being cut to assuming it was done by Felicia. But what about the messages? All the holes? Miss Carroll licked her lips and says, then tapped her fingers on the table as she looked at the wall. Finally, her eyes met mine again. I'm sorry, Grace, but I think it's 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. This is all about 2 girls who are both very good swimmers and have got themselves carried away with a bit of silly rivalry. A bit of? Silly rivalry? Mrs. Carroll finished her firmly, giving me a teachery look. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This was exactly the reason why I had not wanted to tell a grown-up. There still wasn't any proof. Yes, I'd proved it to myself, but that wasn't good enough, and never would be. You better go to lessons, said Mrs. Carroll. Will the chat room be shut down? I asked quietly. Mrs. Walton is in favour of shutting it down, but we'll have to see what other people think. I'm not stopping you or anyone else from using it at Hazeldene for the time being, but I hope that you and Felicia have both learned a lesson from this. The others were waiting for me outside Mrs. Carroll's flat, and as we walked across to our next lesson, I told them what she said. Georgie was furious. She ought to have seen some of those messages she snapped. Then she soon realized it's not 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. It's a dozen of one and zippo of the other. I couldn't even raise a smile at Georgie's wit. In fact, at that moment, I thought I might never smile again. I was so depressed. There didn't seem any point in anything. When I was little, and Mum said I had to go to bed, I often used to stamp my foot and say it's not fair. But that's a thing that all kids say. This was different. This really wasn't fair, because Hannah and I were being bullied and no one was putting a stop to it. Thinking of Mum made me suddenly homesick, and that depressed me even more. Everything seemed pointless. Why should I bother to try and get better at swimming? If I won my races, Felicia would take it out on me even more. And if I didn't win them because I hadn't even tried my hardest, I'd be letting down my house and myself. So I couldn't win either way. I'm not going to swimming squad, I told Jess on Wednesday after school. Jess gasped. You can't just not go, she said. What are you going to tell Mrs. Miller? It's the swimming gala tomorrow. This is your last chance to practice. I'll say I'm not well, I said flatly. But Mrs. Miller will check it out with Mrs. Cowell. I shrugged. I knew I wasn't being myself, but I couldn't help it. Nothing mattered anymore. I don't care. Jess didn't seem to know what to do. She hovered around me for a few seconds and then said, I better go to Art Club. Oh, see you later? I saw BB heading towards the pool and asked her to tell Mrs. Miller that I wasn't well. Oh no, said BB, looking devastated. What's the matter with you? Please don't say you won't be in this room gala either. I shrugged. Don't know. I started to walk off, but BB stopped me. What's the matter? She asked quite sternly. Something's really wrong. I can tell you're not acting normal. I closed my eyes, then opened them slowly, wondering if I could be bothered to tell the whole horrible story again. In the end, I sighed and just gave her the bare facts, flat blah blah voice about the messages and how they connected to things which had actually happened. Baby's eyes widened when I saw the words missing link and I'm missing you. Her hand flew in her mouth. Oh no, and Hannah's costume went missing, she murmured, looking pale. I didn't say anything to that, but just finished off with how I wanted to prove to myself that it was definitely Felicia, and then it would have all been sorted. Only it didn't exactly work out like that, I said heavenly, because even though I proved it to myself, it doesn't actually prove a thing to the teachers. And anyway, Felicia is basically saying she doesn't know what I'm talking about, so that's the end of that. And Phoebe stayed still as a statue for a few seconds, then suddenly put her hand on my arm and gave me an urgent look. Did you tell anyone a bit about why you thought Hannah's costume had gone missing? I shook my head. You told me not to mention it, so I didn't. Right, see you later. And with that, she was gone. So I turned and trudged slowly back to Hazel Lane, wondering if there really was something wrong with me. I had so little energy. The rest of that day was a bit of a blur. My brain seemed to shut down and my body ached. I went straight to bed, and when Jess got back from art club, she got matron to see me. Then Mrs. Carroll came along too. I had my temperature taken twice, and they both asked me lots of questions about what exactly was the matter with me, but I didn't even have the energy to speak. And I could feel my eyes balancing tears that I knew would drop onto my cheeks if I dared to blink. So I turned away and let them roll in onto my pillow. It was only 6 o'clock, but I was already sliding into sleep, dreaming that I was locked in a swim pool building, and all the teachers were saying that unless I got into the pool and swam 60 lines straight away, I wouldn't be allowed out. It was a relief to wake up after that nightmare. But in no time at all, I found myself in another dream where I was looked out of the swimming pool building, banging on the door and screaming, "Let me in." But Felicia was behind the door, laughing and pointing at me, saying, "No, Grace, no, Grace," over and over again. Sometime later, Jess leaned over me and whispered, "Night, Grace." I managed to say night back, and she told me in her gentlest voice that I didn't have to worry because Mrs. Carroll was sorting everything out. And then, when Mrs. Carroll was patting my arm and saying, "Sleep well, you'll feel better in the morning." So then I dreamed that Mrs. Carroll was coming around the whole school looking for Hannah's costume, but she never found it. It was dark when I next woke up. By the light of my little bedside lamp, I saw that my watch said 6:35. I felt wide awake, and it was no wonder because I'd been asleep for ages. I sat up in bed and thought about everything that had happened the day before. I also remembered with a shock that this was the day of the swim gala. I was suspecting a few of the class, but in fact I felt fine and couldn't work out why that was. Then I remembered what Jess had said to me about Mrs. Carroll sorting everything out. I was desperate to wake Jess up and ask what exactly she meant by that, but it would be cruel to cut off her sleep when she had another 25 minutes to go. I got up to go over later, noticing that the lead weight seemed to have left my eyes, and my whole body felt lighter. On the way back, I saw Matron coming out of the room. She asked me how I was feeling, and I said I thought I was all right, but I couldn't tell her for sure yet. She nodded and said, "Good." Then her eyes lit up. "We want our best swimmers on fine form today." When I got back to the dorm, Naomi and Mia were both sitting up in bed. I just woke up a moment later after Naomi's voice asking me how I was feeling. "Guess what?" said Jess as soon as she saw me. Then she tumbled into the faintest gabble I'd ever heard her use. "Phoebe told Hannah what you said about Felicia and everything, and Hannah went straight to Mrs. Arnsdale. We all met up at supper, and Phoebe told us Miss Arnsdale lent Hannah her own swimsuit, and Hannah's over the moon because it's a really trendy one. And Mrs. Arnsdale came to see Mrs. Carroll during prep. We saw them saying bye to each other when we came out at the end. So then I asked to see Mrs. Carroll, and I went mad and said it wasn't fair that no one believed you about Felicia, and now you were ill because you were so upset. And Mrs. Carroll said I wasn't to worry anymore because it had been sorted out, and I said that I didn't care about me worrying because it had been I only cared about you worrying. So that's why she came to see you last night. Jess suddenly stopped talking and looked at me carefully. "You do remember her coming in when you were half asleep, don't you?" I nodded but couldn't reply because she was rattling away anyway. And I noticed that Georgie and Katie were wide awake and turning in too. Anyway, this was the best bit. Because Georgie went to the loo during prep and she actually heard Mrs. Carroll and Mrs. Arnsdale talking, so she stayed out of sight around the corner and listened in. "Let me tell her this bit," said Georgie, who looked as though she was bursting. Jess's eyes beamed. "Go on then, quick. I can't wait for Grace to hear this." "Drumroll," said Georgie. She grinned at me. The excitement in the dorm was infectious. I couldn't wait to hear what was coming. "Elle?" Georgie went on slowly and dramatically, emphasizing all the names. "Mrs. Arnsdale told Mrs. Carroll that Mrs. Miller had been to see her about Hannah's swimsuit because Mrs. Miller found it." "Where?" I gasped. Georgie looked over the top mysterious. I knew she was loving spinning out the tale, but I was wishing she'd get on with it now. "In Felicia's hands." "What?" "Apparently Miss Miller was in that little storeroom at the other end of the pool, and she happened to see Felicia come creeping into the pool, fully dressed and carrying something black. So she watched as she saw Felicia furiously make the spectators area and put the black thing down in the furthest corner under a seat. Then fast as anything, Felicia rushed out of the pool area and out of the whole building. So then Mrs. Miller went straight over and found that the black thing was a swimsuit. And she asked around and discovered that Hannah had lost her swimsuit. So she went to see Mrs. Arnsdale, and then Mrs. Arnsdale went to see Mrs. Walton, and hey presto, Felicia's nicked." I gasped and then sighed. "That's good for Hannah, but I still wish there was a way of proving I didn't just make up the chat room stuff." "Aha, there is," said Jess, giving me a tight hug. "You see, Phoebe told us that Evie was really quite quiet as Swimming Squad, and she admitted to Phoebe that she was one of the people online when Felicia wrote that you were a disgrace and that you'd never be able to prove it was her saying stuff about you. And Evie knows Felicia's username. She said she wanted to tell a teacher, but she was too scared of what might happen if Felicia found out it was her. But Phoebe persuaded Evie to tell Mrs. Miller, and Mrs. Miller promised not to mention any names when she reported it to Mrs. Carroll and Mrs. Walton." I took a deep breath and let it out. The truth at last. The others were all nodding furiously. And the most important thing," said Kitty with a twinkle in her eye, "is that Felicia's not allowed to swim in the gala, which means Hazeldine are in with a much better chance." It was as though the muddled mess that was my life yesterday had been completely untangled and straightened out, and my world sparkled with happiness and relief. In fact, the first time ever, I found myself actually looking forward to the gala. the last chapter. And it's been going, it's going to be 3 hours long, this. Chapter 10. The adrenaline pumped around my body as I walked with the rest of the competitors for the changing room into the pool area. A wall of noise hit us from the spectators area. All the girls from years 7, 8 and 9 who weren't swimming in the gala sat squashed up on the teetered benches, excited chatter ringing round the pool and zinging off the walls. Even the teachers and the house staff in the second row looked excited. The year 8 and 9 competitors went to sit in the front row of the spectators area with their towels around them, while we year 7 competitors filed neatly into the rows of plastic chairs which had been put along each side of the pool. As soon as I was sitting down, I looked over to try and spot Jess and the others. It wasn't hard. They were jumping up and down, giving me big two-armed waves. My glance skimmed down over the rest of the year 7s, and I saw Felicia, shoulders hunched and looking sulky, a couple of rows in front. No one was talking to her, and she happened to glance up. Our eyes met, but she dropped her gaze instantly. It was weird. I almost felt sorry for her at that moment. At precisely 2:30, Miss Mellor blew her whistle 3 times, and there was instant silence. Good afternoon, she began, and for some reason everyone burst into applause. This year's swimming gala promises to be a hugely exciting event, and I know you're all dying for the action to begin. But first, Mrs. Carmichael has something to say. There was another burst of applause, peppered with cheering, as the head came down from the spectators' benches to the side of the pool. I saw Jess bite her lip, and I knew she was feeling that mixture of excitement and nervousness that I was feeling myself, because Mrs. Carmichael was about to announce the winner of the program design. I had no idea what Jess's design was, because she kept it a secret, even from her friends. I crossed my fingers on both hands and tried to catch Jess's eye, but she was looking down. Ladies and gentlemen of the staff, said Mrs. Carmichael, in her most head-teacherly voice, would you kindly raise your programs to reveal the picture on the front cover? A thunderous applause spread like wildfire from the competitors around the pool, who saw the programs first to the rest of the spectators, as the teachers slowly turned to hold up the programs for everyone to see. Jessica Wood of Hazeldene has produced the winning design. Very well done to you, Jessica. Mia and Kitty, who were on either side of Jess, gave her a huge hug, and then Mrs. Mellor gave Jess a signal to go down, and shake hands with Mrs. Carmichael. On the way, she looked across at me and gave me a double thumbs up, which made everyone laugh. I was wishing I could see the picture a bit more clearly, but it was just too far away to make out what it was, so I'd have to wait till afterwards to look at it properly. Precisely 2:40, I stood on my starting block, waiting. The year 7 50 meters front crawl was the very first race. On the starting block, to my right stood Hannah, where Mrs. Arnsdale swimsuit. Phoebe had told us in the changing room earlier that although Mrs. Arnsdale had only lent it to Hannah at first, she thought Hannah looked so much better in it that she did herself that she wanted Hannah to keep it. I glanced nervously at Hannah, and she pulled a face as if to say, "Are you as scared as I am?" Then we both snapped back into starting straight ahead and getting in a position. Miss Mellor's voice echoed into the silence. "Take your marks!" At the stark sound of the start of gun, my nervousness vanished, and completely as I dived, I felt my competitive spirit flooding in. There were 6 of us doing front crawl as hard as we could, and for a while I couldn't see any of the others at all, as I was concentrating so hard on driving myself forward. The screams of the supporters rose above the splash of the water, and gave me a new strength as we forged our way along the lanes. I managed a perfect tumble run, overtaking Evie and 3 of the others. There was just me and Hannah in the lead, and we stayed exactly level all the way down the second line. Stroke after stroke after exhausting stroke. Then just when I thought I'd die if I had to do another single one, I chose the side and heard the sound of the whistle. A single whistle. I looked to my right, Hannah lifted her goggles, and her eyes danced. We drew. She was reaching out to give me a hug, and I thought how different this was from that other time we'd drawn, when I'd been so eaten up with worry even to smile, and Hannah had looked away, convinced I hadn't liked her. I reckon Hazeldine is winning, says Georgie, jumping up and down on the benches when I went to join my friends after my last wits. Thank goodness we've got you in our house, Grace. I'd come level first in the firm crawl, and second in the backstroke. I managed to pull my team into first place for both the melee and the freestyle relays, but after a while it's impossible to keep score when there are 6 houses all competing. After the year 7's races, it was the year 8's, then 9's, and as time went on, we completely lost track of the score. Except it was obvious that Beach House was way behind. I expect they were all fed up with Felicia. From where I was sitting, I could see her with Casey and Stella on either side of her as usual, but they were talking to the people in front while Felicia stared into space. I couldn't imagine what was going through her head. It's time, squeaked Naomi from just behind us. Look, Miss Mellor's about to announce the results. The shouts of excitement left her blurred echoes hanging in the air. Then a complete hush took over, as Mrs. Mellor was joined by Mrs. Carmichael and Mrs. Andrews, the deputy head. Well done, girls, came Mrs. Carmichael's clear voice over the PA system. I never knew we had such talented swimmers here at Spires. A big cheer went up. Mrs. Carmichael smiled as she waited for it to die down. Talent is twofold, she went on slowly, her eyes moving around the whole spectators area. It comes from within, but then it has to be coaxed out. I think we are the luckiest school in the country to have Mrs. Mellor to do that coaxing, don't you? We all broke into applause again, and lots of people whistled. Mrs. Mellor looked really happy and blew a kiss over to the spectators' benches. Here we are all sitting, so now to the scores. The silence was gripping. Georgie clutched hold of Mia, and I saw BB do the same to Hannah, just along from us. In 6th place, Beach House. Everyone clapped and a few people groaned. In joint 4th place, Forest, Ash and Oakley. The clapping was shorter this time. In 3rd place, Elmhurst. No one moved a muscle. In 2nd place, Miss Michael deliberately left the longest pause under the sun and finally said, Hazeldine! The whole place erupted, and all the Willhaven students got up and clapped high above their heads, chanting, We are the winners! Over and over again. Mrs. Carmichael, Mrs. Andrews and Mrs. Mellor were laughing away together, waiting for the place to settle down. I gave Hannah a big thumbs up when her housemates finally stopped patting her on the back, and she looked as though she was going to burst with happiness. Good for Willowhaven, I whispered to Jess, and inside I felt completely calm and contented. It was strange, but I was only a bit disappointed that Hazeldine hadn't won. I knew I'd done my personal best, and that gave me the most amazing feeling. Later, when we were all changed, we took a closer look at the design that had won Jess the prize. It was such a brilliant photo she'd taken of the pool window. Miss Mellor had stuck programs up all over the walls of the foyer, and the walls of all the students were admiring Jess's work. It's so effective, the way it reflects the outside of all the trees and everything, and yet you can see inside too, said a girl called Tabitha. Oh yes, if you look really carefully, you can actually see someone there at the very back of the spectators area, said another year 9. But it looks like she's lost in the woods, doesn't it? Because of the reflection of all the trees from outside. The girl from Beach House peered closely at the picture. That's Felicia Streeter, isn't it? What's she doing there? We all wandered off, leaving just me and my friends. She looked at each other with big eyes. Did you realise you photographed Felicia? I asked quietly. No, not until I saw the picture blown up on the computer screen. That was what made me decide to use it for the competition. It was just a moment in time, but to me it captured the whole feeling about the swimming gala. Naomi peered at Jess's picture. And what that girl said just then is so true. The way the trees are reflected in the photo, it really does look as though Felicia is lost in the woods. Jess nodded. And in a way, she was, whispered so only I could hear her, and the two of us exchanged our special look, which said, let's talk about it later. I knew she spent ages discussing how big pool window and whether it was keeping someone in or keeping someone out, and whether we ought to feel sorry for Felicia because maybe everything she'd done had come out of feeling lost. Katie suddenly looked round futilely, as though checking that no one could hear her. Then she said something that had never occurred to me. Maybe you captured the moment of proof, Jess. Georgie frowned. What moment of proof? Dress of hiding Hannah's costume, whispered Maria. Maybe I did, said Jess, with that faraway look in her eyes. A thoughtful silence closed in around us for a few seconds, until Jess's phone started to ring. She answered it quickly. Oh, hi, Mom! Then we all drifted outside, but as Georgie chose that moment to jump up and down shouting, Hazelden forever! I didn't hear anything more of what Jess was saying. A moment later she disconnected and turned to me with buoyant eyes. Guess what? Mom's got 2 days off work at the end of the half term, and Jan and Mum have been on the phone to each other, and they've sorted out that we're spending from Saturday to Wednesday at Jan's, and then Thursday to Sunday at mine. What? Together? At half term, you mean? I asked, being a bit thick for a moment. Of course together, said Jess. Give me a hug. Then she linked her arm up through mine and we set off back to Hazelden. Jess was staring all around her, but I was looking at anything, because my mind was swirling with thoughts about all had happened. You're very quiet, Grace, said Jess hesitantly, after a few moments. You do want to spend half term together, don't you? Of course I do, I assured her. Can't wait, in fact. You're not sad because of Hazelden not winning, are you? I smiled and shook my head. No, I said, standing quite still. I'm not sad at all because I did my personal best, and I'm just thinking back over all that's happened. I've been thinking too, Jess said, and I have to say something, and this is it. With all you've come through, you are the overall winner of Silver Spires. There was a long silent moment while Jess looked right into my eyes, and one of her little Jess dreams. I wish I could have my camera right now, she said finally, so I could take your photo and put it on your pinboard with a big heading, the overall winner. Then you'd never forget it. Don't worry, I said quietly. I won't ever forget it. The end. When I was reading that, and Jess is her best friend who likes photography and everything, it reminded me of my friend Jess. That's my friend. My friend's that Jess. She likes taking photographs and everything. So that Jess in this book is my friend Jess. She likes taking photos of very unique and interesting things as well. So when she was, that is my friend. Okay, I'm gonna make my tea now because it's late. I'm hungry. But yeah, that was Rivalry at Silver Spires.